We are very fortunate to have with us Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, Chairman of All India Council for Technical Education, joining us in this session for a keynote address. Thank you, sir, for joining. So for your information, we have merged the two panels on skilling and education, and there's a mega panel which Ashish ji is going to preside over. Pooja and Chaitanya, I'm just going to find Chaitanya and send him here. Meanwhile, I request Ashish ji to please start the session.
Hello. Thank you, Shalini. Good afternoon to all of you. I hope you all had lunch, and I also hope that you don't fall asleep. So moving forward, we have a huge panel. We have our actor friend from Karnataka, Mr. Srinivas. And you'll see his style. He is a great actor. And we have Mohit Soni, is a CEO for Media and Entertainment Skill Council. We have Arul sir, and we have Anuj Kakkar sir here from Aptech. We have Dr. Anil Sahasrabudhe sir. He's chairman of AICT. We have Vishwas, he's from Technicolor. We had a great opportunity in Bangalore to hear him in GAFX. We have Pooja, and she's also actually from DNEC. And of course, Chaitanya, you all heard in the last session, but we have Chaitanya who is going to throw a lot of light on this session as well. And we have Sandeep Sharma, also from Technicolor. To start with, I think what we will do, we're going to actually merge skills and education, and both are very important, and both needs to be merged to get the best result. And I think that's rightfully so. That's what has happened. But what we'll do is that because Anil sir actually was called by the ministry and he was out, we were not very sure whether we will get him in time here. But now that he is here, before he's called by anybody else, we would like to ensure that we hear him first, and then we will take the rest of the session forward. So Anil sir, over to you first. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Ashish, for that introduction of all the panelists, both from the skill domain and education domain. And very recently, there were task force created, subcommittees who have done our groundwork, and we are going to submit. And Chaitanya is the hero, so who spearheaded the education. And he would be speaking after me anyway, and elaborate on what all we have thought about in the AVGC sector in terms of education. But as a starting point, I would like to tell you about a very interesting thing that will catch the attention of the audience here, as well as others outside. There's one young student called Aditya Pachpande in Pune. He is in the 11th grade now. But about 3 years ago, he was in the 8th grade, and he has created such innovative different types of products and processes that it is amazing that he has been invited in Stanford, he has been invited in various places in the US for giving talk, several TED Talks he has given, and he has developed product during COVID for taking care of the health in terms of how do we kill the bacteria or the viruses that are there. A small box which is costing hardly about 6,000 rupees, but your handkerchief and all that you can put in, and then it will be safe. And that guy, I had a choice of meeting him in Pune on one of the occasions, and I just chatted with him during the informal tea session, etc., and said that, how did you get all of these ideas? That was about 3 years ago. I'm talking about pre-COVID time, when meetings used to happen like this. These 2 years, nothing happened. So he was 8th standard guy. He told me, actually, I was seeing comics all the time and various types of such books. Initially, parents, etc., were saying, what is this? You're always endorsed in that and you're not studying. But then that was a motivation, the different characters that I see in them. And that gave me way for innovation. And he's today one of the youngest innovators who has been invited in top universities of the world to give a talk. I think that is the power of AVGC. This is what is very, very important. And I was very convinced. And prior to that, I would also probably said the same thing to my children or anyone. कि पहले पढ़ाई करो यार. तो अभी हमको समझ में आया कि हर चीज में सीखने के लिए मिलता है. और AVGC is a very powerful tool for learning, teaching. And that's why this sector is going to play a very significant role, not just in education in AVGC, but in the rest of the education also, it has a big role to play. And that is what is the advocacy that I have been doing. And we know that National Education Policy was rolled out on 29th of July 2020. Now it is just about 2 years. In that policy, when it talks about school education, which is going to be changed from the present 10+2 system to 5+3+3+4, that means 15 years of education. But the starting point is, instead of 6 years of age, it would be starting at the age of 3. And we have informally today kindergarten, we call Balwadi, Anganwadi. There is informal way of education, which is already happening in some segments. Not necessarily every child goes through that. And many children in the rural areas, they don't have access to this. They come directly at the age of 6. But most children in the cities, they have nursery, kindergarten, and they do games, etc. in there. So how this can spread to every child of this country is what is being envisaged. And that is where learning happens, not just through the textbooks or by the lectures, but more by activities, by indulging in action. And this action could be physical, it could be digital, it could be in different forms. And that is why AVGC, which can create not only audiovisual content, but also a lot of games. And these games are very powerful in many ways. They give you insight into working of our left brain and right brain. How we can really initiate action in our brain, both left side brain as well as right side brain. Critical thinking, analytical ability on one side and creativity on the other side is all possible provided we create right kind of games. Comics, of course, children always enjoy. And if you want to give values, whether it is in terms of ethical practices or what we say as our ancient Indian civilizational values, I think comics are the best. We all know about various new comics which have come in, not only in India, but across the world, which engage our children. And each one of them will also put them into a track of learning. And that learning is very, very important. And that's why AVGC sector has a big role to play. And now, fortunately, thankfully, both skill and the education were put together, maybe because earlier sessions got delayed. And no, I'm just joking. Or because I want to run away early, so they want to put us together in one format. So in any case, this is very, very important. Although Government of India started way back in 2014-15, a Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. But in the right spirit, it is nothing but part of education. Education without skills is meaningless. Skills without education is meaningless. They are both absolutely complementary. Right from childhood, we must have general education also and also skilling. Unfortunately, in our country, skills were relegated to a slightly unimportant status. And that's why when someone says that I'm doing diploma in vocational education, diploma or degree in vocational education, people look like, what is this? They're not, and usko shadi bhi jaldi nahi hoti hai, aise bhi log bolte hain. So therefore, I think these skills are very important. Some of them earn quite a lot, but still society has to appreciate that. And that can happen only when in the national education policy, it is said that early childhood education should be through our mother tongue, our own languages, maybe lots of games, toys, lot of activities through which children enjoy. The child has to tell the parents on Saturday and Sunday that why is school not there? I want to go to the school. Rather than crying on Monday or Tuesday that मैं जाना नहीं है मुझे, ऐसे जो रोते हैं उसके बदले में शनिवार रविवार को भी उनको ऐसा बोलना पड़ेगा कि हम स्कूल जाना चाहते हैं, घर में नहीं, हमको अच्छा लग रहा है. So I think that will happen only when we create those toys, those games, those which are exciting. At the same time, they learn alphabets, they learn words, they learn mathematics, they learn science. I think all of this is absolutely feasible. And today, through technology, many of the startups have created such games. They are very, very important, significant. And that's why, again, it is important. And then from the 6th standard onwards in the national education policy talks about at least a child should start learning 1 or 2 skills, at least in that 6th to 8th, and in 9th to 12th, specialize in at least 1 or 2 of them. Thereby, when they come to higher education, be it BA in arts, commerce, science, or whatever they are doing, BSc, BCom, engineering, architecture, pharmacy, law, medicine, they must have learned at least a couple of skills. That means education along with skills. Earlier, when the government started for the first time this ministry, there were 2 different ministers for education and then for skills. Fortunately, maybe we now realize that they are to be together. The same minister, Sri Dharmendra Pradhan, is heading both the Ministry of Skill and Entrepreneurship on one side and the Ministry of Education. Maybe in 5 to 10 years' time, when skills become prominent, people will appreciate that. I'm sure the ministry can be combined back to the Ministry of Education, which should serve the purpose of skilling as well as education. I think that's where we need to move out to. And then such children who go through this skilling process, all variety of skills, from 6th standard onwards up to 12th standard, one of them is they are already engaged, they understand the nuances, and therefore the theoretical background which is going to be developed in the future, leading to including innovation, research, becomes on a very strong, solid foundation, number one. Number two, even if they do whatever, they would have realized the hard work that is there behind each one of these skills. And not that sitting only in the air-conditioned room will fetch the purpose, but there is something which is beyond that. And that dignity of labor also gets established, value of citizenry, that respecting the other chap, whatever he does, we need to do that. This will really catapult us into skill domain as well as education domain. That is the purpose. I think that is what I wanted to say on this platform. I'm thankful to all these very eminent people. I'm the most uneducated in terms of skill or vocation or AVGC, but they will tell us more about it. And I have come here to learn from them and wherever possible, try to implement that in right earnest. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anil Sahasrabudheji. In fact, it was always a delight to work with you, and it's been really amazing. He chaired our sub task force on education, and of course we had Chaitanya actually putting everything together, and he has done a fabulous job. So while we come to that, I think it's the way our team at CII and Biren tried to balance this in a very unique way. All skill development people are on the left and the industry people are on the right. And they only put Chaitanya there so that there has to be a balance. So having said that, I think we will, this time, I've been thinking, where to start, because we have quite a lot of speakers. So I'm going to start with the industry, because I would like, I know that many of them might have seen what's going on into the discussions and the recommendations, but I would like to ask 3 of them, Sandeep, Pooja, and Vishwa. What do they like to see in the skilling ecosystem to happen, and what would they like to see into the education ecosystem? And then we will then start revealing out whether we have already captured that or not captured that. So I think we will start with Pooja first, and then go to Sandeep, and then come to Vishwas.
I think there are two aspects lost, what we would want to see and what we are missing. So
So let me give you a little bit of an idea to start with. So, we when the lockdown happened and we didn't really we didn't know when we will be meeting again. So we put a team together and spoke to the government and said that we would like to put up a national AVGC policy together at this point in time. And then in the nights, we used to be on a Zoom from 9 to 12, and 140 of us put one document together. And then that was submitted to Niti Aayog and all these things. But then Darpan Jain, who was here today, and he is one of the points he always asks, what is the size of this? How many people work here? He has a habit. He's a commerce ministry, So he asked in one of the meetings that how many studios are there, and then everybody looked at each other. Nobody knew how many studios are there. Then he said, how many people work in your industry? Nobody knew. So then at that point in time, we started talking to each one of them state-wise, and we put up an Excel sheet together, and how many studios are there, and how many people were working with them pre-COVID and post-COVID. At the same time, we then have a number of people working in the industry. So we realized that there are 185,000 direct employees, and 50,000 around were in the gaming industry, and 24,000 were doing services work for exports. And the remaining guys, which was 80,000 plus, were doing visual effects and animation for the Indian ecosystem. So then we started estimating what would happen. We were in 2020. What would happen if we have to, and we were less than 1% of the global industry. So we looked at the trajectory of where the industry would reach. Then we spoke to all the universities, and the good thing for us on July 29th, as Dr. Sab said, the national education policy came in, and we all had worked very deeply in that ecosystem, as people who had a lot of wish lists to actually see what would come into the education policy, and to our surprise, most of the things came in. And that's where the creative education and performing arts and design and sports became a part of mainstream, by the way. But we estimated that by 2030, we would require 20 lakh people in this industry. And so much so the strongest teams were from gaming, and they said that out of the 20 lakh, 10 lakh will be required by our industry alone. And then we had put the reverse order, and we worked out that we would be in the range of 60 to 80 billion dollars as an AVGC industry from India. And that will constitute anywhere between 4% to 6% of the global industry. So that's the leap that we would like to take. And then we formed a pyramid. So there is a bottom of the pyramid, which is informal skills to skilling people to go directly to the job. The middle of the pyramid would deal with the education ecosystem in schools as well as in the universities. And then came the research part of it. So we actually created a pyramid and a systematic growth plan for the next 10 years. So that was one of the inputs that we had, but it came from the industry. But then how do you match it and look at an expectation that education industry also and the skilling ecosystem also should reciprocate the same with us? And truly speaking, NEP 2020 came as a blessing, so that we actually became a part of implementation, and we were very excited to be a part of ecosystem. Now, as an industry that you are hiring people, I would like you to see in this context, what do you really want to see coming in two sections? We have, as Secretary said, we have a policy subgroup, we have a gaming subgroup, we have a skilling subgroup, and we also have the education subgroup. But in this particular session, we are concentrating on gaming and skilling. Education and skilling. So I would like you to make your points focusing at these two sections. What would you like to really see?
So from the education point of view, because we are always looking for new talent. What we actually have is we do have some vocational courses which help us to go find the basic talent, and then we upskill them gradually by internally creating a course for them. What I would like to see from the education background, that this part should be exposed even to kids at a younger generation, so that they are looking more closer. Okay, so that it's, and like even if you want to play you want to be a good footballer, you need to learn to dribble the ball by age of 5. Similarly, if you want to be a good artist, you need the pencil to be held at age of 5, 6 again. I would say we need to expose them to at least basic things, how to use a computer, how to draw something on the computer. If you start doing this from a younger age in the education, it will probably help them to enhance, and they will realize if they want to take this up as a career. Like, I think when I was growing up, it was very difficult to convince my parents if I wanted to do something in this industry, because there is not that much of an exposure to the parents or the child, what this industry holds and what you can be at a certain point in your career. No one knows. So I think that part, if we can cover at an earlier age in schools and colleges, somehow would help us. From the skilling perspective, when we, as whether I've worked in MPC, DNEG, Rhythm and Use, what I've noticed is we can hire raw basic talent from schools or vocational guidances. But because we all use different pipelines, we will have to run some specialized classes or a specialized program for them. And that is what each company designs and helps them to do it. But we at DNEC have started a different concept where we get the youngsters in. We do a 3-month training, aggressive training with them. And we then tell them the best ones. It's a paid internship where we say the best ones will get into the visual effects corridors. I think if every company does something like this, I know MPC does it already. But if everyone does this way, we will open up a bigger channel for creating talent. And I would say, I would humbly request all companies to work this way, because we'll develop talent in both aspects. So that's my say for this.
You didn't answer my question. What would you like to see in the policy? So what you said has to be done by the company. Why will government put that in the policy?
I think I would ask the government to start encouraging and investing in these sort of, basic small courses in the day-to-day schooling courses.
Yeah,
like
so-
just you have your music class, have an animation class, have a gaming class. Start it young. Why wait?
But don't you think that will be a big mistake? You can't do an engineering class or a doctor class. There is a pathway. There is physics, chemistry, mathematics to go to the 12th and then go to MBA, engineering. You have physics, chemistry, biology to go to medical. But if you start, the mistake was that you're putting you're saying that we will do animation course or a gaming course into the school. That's a big mistake.
No, I don't think so. That's a mistake, because you are doing art. You are doing some sort of creativity, right?
No, some sort of creativity is different than doing animation and gaming.
So we are exposing
so
them.
one has to be very, very clear, because the policy is not going to say animation. It's not going to say gaming. It is going to say that in the university, yes. Might not say in the school. So there has to be a progression. So I understand your point is that you need to start early, and that's your take. What will be early? We'll come to that.
Right.
Because it's a debate.
Only thing I would say, it's more like a narrative art. Put animation or something as a narrative art in the thing.
We'll tell you what we have done. We have done far deeper study than this.
Great.
Don't worry.
So
Yes, Sandeep.
I wanted to add something to Ashish's earlier thing. So Ashish is also industry, by the way. वो conveniently जब चाहिए इधर चला जाता है, वो जब चाहिए उधर चला जाता है. So FYI, Ashish is also industry. Industry actually starts from there.
The thing is, मेरे को इसलिए बीच में बैठा है, दोनों साइड को बैलेंस करूंगा. संदीप.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me today, this esteemed panel. I echo what Pooja just mentioned. There is a need of, certainly we need to involve with, students have creative, creative training introduced early on so that, we see that there's a bent of mind. But then there should be a system to judge. Are these candidates, are these children, more inclined towards technical aspects, or these are, people who would make it better in IT or, logical coding and all of that. So there needs to be some way of getting conclusion on how, these students are going in terms of their, preference. So that's one. Second is that today, where I stand, I get to speak with a lot of, in fact, I'm engaged with many institutions, universities, schools. And on the other side, I'm kind of the bridge between the studio and, this fresher pool. What I see is that, in fact, I'd like to add that, just a few days back, I was at another summit where there were a lot of discussions and workshops going on. And the students who were attending these discussions asked questions such as, what software are you using to animate? Rather than looking at the work and saying, that the kind of skill that is required to do that, they are kind of in another world altogether. They think that the software does it. It's not the software, actually. So I think the most important aspect here is that I would want to see a world wherein there is a fine balance between skills as well as tools. They need to know that tools are different. Skills are a different thing altogether. So that's one. So I would say, if I am looking at someone, the expectations that I'll have from the schools would be a person who's good with skills, that is, has good skills to work on whatever he or she is doing. Second, creative side of things, which means aesthetics knowledge. So how to make things look good, how to, understanding that being creative is very important here. And I think the national education policy also kind of pushes the candidates to explore the creative side as well. And the third thing that I may have missed in some of my last discussions, which I have seen missing, is people skill, so soft skills. So I think that this is very crucial. Of when you come into a studio and you have to work on deadlines, you really need that teamwork to be developed in the candidate early on. Because when they're in teams, they're working, these are some very, very important skills, make or break, because deadline is everything. So that's something that I'll expect, from the schools. That's it. Anything else, Ashish ji?
Yeah, so you would like to see creative skills, you would like to see life skills, and you also want to see technical skills, but there has to be a balance between the creative skills and technical skills.
Yes.
Which will come in which order is what we will see as a part of the curriculum. What will come first? I think good input. I would like to now hear from you. Is what's your ask in both the verticals of skilling as well as education?
Sure. Thanks, Ashish. And first of all, thanks for inviting me here. Just one disclaimer. I am not from this industry. I joined this industry just 4 or 5 months back. And I joined from IT side.
You're from a proven industry, yes, and that's why you are here.
That's correct. That's correct.
So you can actually throw light with more focus on.
Sure, definitely. So I'll try to do my bit. And I joined as a global TA head for Technicolor. And since the time I have joined, there is a constant pressure, recruit so many people every month, every week, and things like that. There are many dashboards actually which get published. And to the extent the company's growth is dependent actually, on recruitment. And while, it is good to be on hot seat, it's always good to be on limelight. But we cannot actually continue operating in this model. We need to definitely scale up our numbers significantly. As Ashish, you mentioned that we have currently approximately around 2 lakh, team members who are currently employed in AVGC industry. And the task is to take it to 20 lakhs by 2030. So it means that every year we should be adding 2 lakh a professional into this industry. And again, this is subjected to some kind of, scrutiny. But what I find that all the, universities or institutes put together, we are producing only 35,000-40,000 students per year. I mean, my calculation can be a little bit here and there, but
The numbers person will be here next
Okay.
after this.
so he can validate it. So important thing is that this 35-40,000 has to become actually 2 lakhs. So we need lot more institutes. We need lot more, skilling organization, etc., to scale up the numbers significantly. And then comes the second aspect, which is the quality aspect. And as Pooja mentioned, as Sandeep mentioned, the team members which we get actually most of the time from these educational institutes, they are very good in using the software, but most of the time lagging on the creative side. And I can understand that it's not just the educational institutes or skilling organization can do it. It needs to start something very early. And again, I mean, this is my thinking that we need to divide the whole scaling up part into 3 or 4 parts. Okay, and the first part is start from the beginning itself. The whole of our education system is, as all of us know, it's mostly rota-based system. Okay, you from the beginning itself, you should know table, you should know addition, you should know all these things. So while there is not that much of work which happens on the creative side, how many times we have seen that the up to 11th or 12th standard, the students have been asked to work on a project or create something new, or come up with a innovative model, etc. And it is good that now many actually schools are focusing in this direction, but it definitely is still lagging big time. So we should start from there. Second part comes the whole formal education part, like bachelor's or master's degrees, etc. And that is where the bigger educational institutes have to play a role. We have so many universities. There are thousands of universities who are producing engineers to the tune of 10 lakhs. Last time I counted, 10 lakhs engineers come out of our engineering institutes every year, while in our industry only 35-40,000. So how we can take from 35-40 to 2 lakhs? That is a very big challenge. We need to work on it. And the program, again, I mean, Ashish, you were mentioning about that, what kind of structure of program should be there. In my view, it should be a 4-year program, just like you have it for engineering or so many other disciplines. And we can, I mean, of course, we can frame a generic framework, but towards the end, the last year can be, the year of a specialization, and there can be special electives which students can opt for, and then also they can go for go to industries for internship. Industries also have to play a very important role in facilitating those internships. So this is on the the bachelor's and master's, that kind of degree program. And also the other important aspect is constant upskilling. And I forgot, I think somebody mentioned in the previous discussion also, that you cannot actually just, I think Chaitanya mentioned about it, you cannot just rest on it that, look, I did BTech in 1990 and now that's done. Actually, I'm done for the life. That is not the case. I mean, just like, again, I'll compare it with the IT side. Every 3 years, 4 years, there is a new technology coming up, and anybody who wants to stay relevant in the industry, they have to actually go back to college or attend some kind of online courses, etc. So this is the 3 part of education, and I just gave my input. And another 3 other aspects which I think they also should play a very important role. First, let me start with the the participation in the workforce. So the diversity in our organizations. In our industry, broadly around only 15% of women are employed. And Pooja, you can correct me if I am wrong, but only 15% for an industry which is a creative industry. My thinking is this percentage should be at least, should be touching 45-50%, and which is not the case. So how we can, increase the diversity in our, talent pool, very, very important aspect. And again, the educational institutes have to play a very important role, how a lot more people actually can work in the industry, can join these educational courses from the beginning itself. And of course, industry also have to play a very important role in keeping those actually women employees engaged, because that is there. I mean, in my view, a lot of work need to be done on the industry side also. Another, I mean, suggestion from my side is, again, this is for the skilling organizations, the educational institutes. NASSCOM has a platform called Future Skills, if you have heard of it. So what Future Skills does, it's a common platform where budding engineers can go there, or even the experienced professional can go there. It's a common platform which NASSCOM runs, and there are a lot of courses, specialized courses, which are free. Everybody can access it. After that, there are specialized programs also, and there you have to go ahead and actually pay for those kind of courses. So if we can, as an industry, with the help of educational institutes and skilling organizations, if we can come together and have a common platform like that, that'll be a great thing. So Ashish, these are just few of my ideas.
Thanks so much, sir. Before I go to this side, I have a question for Dr. Anil. So we have definitely got a huge need of three or four skills which are not hardcore creative skills or the process skills. One is definitely the business of AVGC, and we need specialized MBAs and rest of the things in this side. At the same time, we have existing engineering colleges, and we need people who need to specialize in media and entertainment education, media and entertainment technology, and also look at the pipeline. What Biren was talking about, why we are really good and successful, is because we are able to build a great pipeline. Now, how can we actually inbuild some of the management programs with understanding of the global media and entertainment and audience business, and how can we actually look at existing engineering colleges doing specialized programs which are relevant for people to join our industry?
There are two ways of looking at it. One is immediate short term and the long term. As far as short term is concerned, we can immediately start with elective courses for students of electronics, computer science, mechanical. They can engage in learning some of those skill sets. Hands-on, do internship, which right now Vishwas mentioned that they will go to an industry where these kind of things are practiced, and then become not just employable, they can create their own startups, they can start recruiting people. This is one part. The second part is, we as AICT have already allowed a process called as dual degree system or double degree system, which is a major degree in one discipline and a minor degree in other discipline. If you do 160 credits of normal program engineering, if you do additional 18 credits in a particular specific domain, you get a minor degree in that domain. Why can't we immediately start off with a AVGC minor degree for existing students of engineering, management, and all that? This is very easily possible. Then comes a pipeline of students who come from schools who have been trained already in AVGC, taking up a full-fledged degree itself in AVGC. So that can be a little long-term plan, because the curriculum, then the school students, what kind of entrance test is to be there. Because in our case, whenever there is a demand for something, there is a huge rush for taking up that course. Today it may be computer science, tomorrow it may be AVGC. So then how do you select those students? This challenge also we need to understand and address. So that is my take on this. No, it's as much as for engineering, what is true for management. You require to manage, talked about soft skills. You talked about time management. We talk about teamwork. We talk about leadership. I think all of this comes from the management domain. And one of our star programs, which AICT started doing 5 years ago, is called Smart India Hackathon. Those who have witnessed, only 2 days back, the hackathon, which is the 5th edition, started. And Prime Minister comes in every hackathon to speak to those young students in the night, 8 o'clock, and spends about 1.5 hours interacting with them. I think these are the people who will be in a position to create a new type of a product while they are still in the college. Not necessarily they have gone out and then become a startup or an entrepreneur. And that we need to support both in management schools as well as in the engineering schools.
Thank you very much. In fact, Chaitanya, you need to write this point of dual degree, which is missing in our document. I think we should add, that's a new point which has come. I'm going to come to you the last. So wait, hold on. Next we're going to go to Arul sir. And after Arul sir, we'll go to Anuj sir before we see what's happening in Bangalore. And then we will talk to the two guys who have put the document of skills together is Mohit and education together is Chaitanya. So we'll come to them last so that they can reveal a lot more than what we have been discussing, but we'll really see whether they've covered everything. But we got one key point from sir today. Arul, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to start with highlighting one particular student I saw in the last 1 year. His name is Nishok Apri. After his 10th standard, the parents forced him to, because he was drawing very well. Parents forced him to do automobile engineering, 3 years diploma. But his dream was to become a character artist. So he finished the 3 years diploma. After that, the parents put him in a plastic engineering diploma, another 3 years. Then in his 7th year, he joined one of the animation courses because he was so adamant, the parents finally gave up. But he did graphic design, and that institution was teaching him graphic design. But he wanted to become character design artist. So in his 8th year of the pursuit for the education, he came to us. And within a couple of months, the kind of work he had done is so amazing. I was almost like, if we missed him, what the industry would have lost. So the biggest challenge is unexpected corner, which is the parents. Many of the admissions that I do in Da Vinci Media College, because since I am in the industry almost from 1986, done a lot of interesting things in the domain. I had to tell the parents that I got into the industry in 1986 and I'm still enjoying my work at the best. So awareness among the parents is the biggest hurdle for both in terms of quantity and quality, for like the numbers what you are talking about. So that need to be addressed. So what we did is we send very nicely done brochures, which is costing around 300 rupees to 1,500 schools last year, telling them that this is the job opportunity, this is a career opportunity. Please either put this in the notice board. We also had a poster, or call us. We will either come or we'll have a Zoom meeting. We didn't even get a single response. That is a shocking thing. So from there only we are trying to harvest. So the students have to go through such a huge hurdle to get into this, first of all, the course itself. Then the second thing what we are talking about is trying to convert a non-artist into an artist. That will never happen. Because from my very early stage of my professional career, I found out it's very difficult to work with a person who is not having art in his heart to work in this industry. Because what you see, they don't see. Like they'll think that, okay, my model is good, what is your problem? But they don't understand that, it's not done perfectly. So it's very important that, this art education should not be considered as a optional. It should be made as a basic thing like ABCD and other alphabet. Creative education is to be made as a basic skill for survival. It doesn't matter, they have to come into the industry to do the animation. Even when they want to put column or when they want to make dosa also, they will do in a creative manner. which means a lot. So we should not, stop at that. Then another very important thing that I'm seeing is like in the last year, this year GAFX in Bangalore, I saw a lot of very good artists from rural areas. They are coming to get the prizes on the stage. They were in bathroom chappals, which means their economic condition is so poor, they are not able to come into this industry because we are talking about skilling, job ready status. We cannot just teach theory. We need to give computers, we need to give software, we need to give all the other support mechanism, which makes this course expensive. So there has to be some kind of mechanism to address this creative skill people to come into this industry. So it can be, we can discuss in many options, like if you are talking about the degree, there can be a tripartite agreement between the student, between the institution and the bank. So when the students are already proven their skills in basic level, I think I would vouch that they will finish the course and they'll pay. If they don't pay, then you can always hold the degree. Don't give it to them. So chances of recovery is very high. Kindly consider this option because I am seeing in front of my eyes, I am losing a lot of artists because I have a very unique advantage. I'm not only an educational institution. I work for more than 360 feature films as a VFX supervisor. So I know the nuts and bolts of the industry in a very thorough understanding. So some of the people I don't want them to lose. So in my capacity, I try to give them a scholarship or even 100% scholarship sometimes, or we give an option like an education loan after finishing the course you pay and all those things. So this is a very small level. I can do only few hundreds. But if you are talking about lakhs numbers, then it has to come from the big power, the government and the industry body. So I think these are there are many more things, but I think that these are key things we should address.
So thanks, Arul sir. In fact, like this, we had one round at GAFX in Bangalore a few months ago. And a very important suggestion came from him to start a 3-year diploma program after 10th for kids. And that's a part of the recommendation right now. So your suggestion is already there, but I think some of the other suggestions also we would take. Anuj sir, he's been a veteran. He's actually given our industry a huge stability by actually bringing in students from nook and corner. We talk only about tier 2, tier 3. He has also gone to tier 4, tier 5, tier 6 also. And deeper in Northeast, Kashmir to whatever places, and have brought, skills from there to the mainstream industry. He actually heads, the big initiative at Aptech, who runs 2 brands in our industry, which is called Arena, which is the biggest brand, and also the Mac brand. Over to you, Anuj sir.
Thank you, Ashish. Firstly, thanks for having me here. As always, it's a pleasure to be part of any such gathering, and with Dr. Sespude is there, it's an added pleasure. Thank you for being here, sir. In forums like this, I'm little confused sometimes. Do I talk from the point of view of my company? Do I talk from point of view of the industry that I'm part of? Do I talk from point of view of the subcommittee task force member, which I have been fortunate enough to be inducted into? So, but at some places they converge, some places they don't converge as well. So let me take a little more broader perspective. और अगर आप मेरी क्षमा करें, मैं बीच-बीच में हिंदी में बोलता हूँ, तो दिल्ली है चलेगा. तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ, जब अब take us back to 1990s when IT industry was where we are today, where AVGC industry is today. Inflection point, lots of demand coming in. People like companies like Aptech, NIIT, and some of the others were producing people by the thousands, sending them abroad. We know the story. universities or colleges to be able to do that. And that's the bare minimum which will be needed to be able to reach out to those kind of people. Now, if you are going to do that kind of a scale, and which we must, and we have no option but not to do it. I mean, not doing it is not an option at all. We have to really think as to what is the right mechanisms to do it, what is the right pedagogy to do it with, how do we reach out to many of the things. The national education policy was the big game changer in my view, which enabled these things to start getting addressed. Because apart from anything else, we have technology as a constraint, or as a driver, we have industry demand as a driver, we have the motivations and passions of the people as drivers, of the students, the changing consumer behavior as a driver, all that is known to this audience. I don't refer to the parental, the biggest constraint is parental approval not being there. We have faced it right throughout the 25 years journey. What you're going to do, animation, are you crazy? Comics banayega kya? Today it's accepted. VFX kya hota hai? Pata hi nahi. Most parents don't know the full form of VFX. Now we are talking gaming. उसका बिल्कुल उसका तो gaming ही साला word है. मतलब सोचो कोई आप ये पेरेंट गेमिंग खेलने जा रहे हैं, पागल है, उसके लिए 2 लाख रुपए चाहिए, 1 लाख रुपए चाहिए, मतलब पागल है. It is crazy, but that is reality. So now the policy has to have two different aspects to it. One is policy has to be an enabling factor, and I think the government, since the launch of the formulation of the NEP, has thought it through, has thought through the issue of enablement. With some of things we pointed out about seeding it young, seeding some thoughts young, inciting getting the passion or the understanding or developing, as Ashish puts it, the physics of the animation should be taught, the chemistry of animation should be taught, not necessarily animation itself, but whatever is the ingredients, and I leave it to him to elaborate on that, should be part of the growing up years at the age appropriate level. Now the other part of the policy has to be the regulation. Now that's a toughie, because regulation can be both an enabler as well as a impediment. Back in the days of IT, and I lived that world, the very fact that we did not have in the Ministry of IT was, as an anecdote told, as an enabler, because there was no ministry means it's a good thing. Acha hai. There's nobody to stop you. But today I think times have changed. We have learned from our mistakes. I think policy is needed to be able to give structure to the growth, and the government's own thinking has evolved in terms of the way education and skilling are being brought together. It's a very, very positive step to be able to bring many aspects of control without being an impediment in the process. Some amount, but having said this, policy has to be dynamic. It needs to be a reviewable document, and most importantly, how do we change it if it's not right? I'm a forecaster in many different avenues, and all my forecasts are wrong. And I will dare say, Ashish, the forecast of 20 million will probably be wrong. Now, either it will be 3 million or 30 million. We don't know which. That depends on whether the policy is right policy or the wrong policy. So forecast of 20 million is the wrong forecast to start with, let me put it. Now, either it will exceed this by a long margin, or we may totally fall flat. And it is the collective effort of years and a lot of everybody in the room and the millions outside which will determine that to happen. The last point that I want to make is the issue of, okay, let me put in a plug-in for my company, otherwise they'll say, kuch bhi nahi bola. Actually, no, jokes apart, I'm fortunate enough to work for a company which has been in the education field. We have been shaping over millions of individuals, not only in India, but in 40 other countries. AVGC field, अगर AVGC and its precursors अगर आप ले लो, तो we've trained more than 7 million people. So it's a large population. But अगर हम इन लोग ये सब कर पाते हैं तो कैसे कर पाते हैं? मतलब we are talking about 300 towns, we are talking about 13 countries, we are talking about this scale of numbers. I would dare say there'll be hardly any studio in the country. I doubt if there's any studio in the country which does not have a student or from Arena or Mac today in their system. Now, at the same time, we have been in the business for 33 years. तो कुछ ना कुछ तो सही कर ही रहे होंगे ना. आज मेरे दोस्त यहाँ पे बैठे हैं इंडस्ट्री के, मेरे को बहुत गालियां देते हैं कि सर आपके ये है, आपके लोग आके हमको फिर से पढ़ाना पड़ता है, आपने ये नहीं पढ़ाया, आपने वो नहीं पढ़ाया, आपने टॉप एंड नहीं पढ़ाया, आपने बॉटम एंड नहीं पढ़ाया. सब ठीक है, सर आंखों पर. बट the issue is that we are really talking about this diversity, we are really talking about this spread, and we have quality benchmarks where we try and measure the learning outcome within a 15% tolerance level. We don't take any admission test from the students. Anybody who's wanting to be in this industry is willing to put in hard work is welcome. So हमारा कोई entry criteria नहीं है. We take people from class 10, we take class 12, class 6, graduates, unemployed graduates, वो बहुत हैं आज की तारीख में, by the way. The biggest pool from where we draw people जिन्होंने BSc BCom करके दिया कि या तो नौकरी नहीं मिल रही है, 5,000 की नौकरी मिल रही है. That's the reality of India, unfortunately. तो उनको स्किल करना, तो इतना बड़ा जब gamut होता है तो we have to, our pedagogy has to be right. And we have tried to perfect this processes, tried to perfect this output so that we are able to cater to the demands of the industry there without sacrificing anything on quality. एक लोगों के मन में धारणा रहती है कि क्वांटिटी है मतलब क्वालिटी नहीं होगी, अगर क्वालिटी है तो क्वांटिटी नहीं, मतलब एक इनवर्स कोरिलेशन गिवन है. But just to give you an example, I am patting myself on the back. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to pat. Last Academy Awards, Oscars, 10 nominations in the VFX category. अगर मैं सारे credits गिन लूं, 106 बच्चे थे, अब बच्चे नहीं बड़े हो गए, कि जिन्होंने alumni of Arena Mac who were there in the credit list. Or as Pooja told me just offline, is that अगर 106 थे तो कितने थे जो नहीं थे, but yet have contributed to the movies. तो कहीं ना कहीं कुछ ना कुछ उन्होंने या तो हमसे सीखा या हमारे बाद सीखा, बट वो उनको वहां तक पहुंचाने का मुकाम पहुंचे का एक स्टेपिंग स्टोन जरूर थे हम, कि उनकी जो एक पैशन थी, उनका जो एक थिंकिंग थी, उसको उभारना, निखारना, तराशना, ये हमारा काम है. और यही हम सबका काम होना चाहिए एज एजुकेटर्स, एज ट्रेनिंग प्रोवाइडर्स. हमारा काम एकदम से हम कहेंगे हम इंडस्ट्री को रेडी प्रोडक्ट करके उसको घिसा के एकदम दे दें ताकि आपका काम कल से चल जाए. एज एन आइडियल यस, एज अ practical thing no. Most studios today have a finishing school, which I think is the right way to do it, where you take a 90% product, top it up with your 10% and be done with it. Sorry, मैं ज्यादा बोल गया. Sir, आपकी कोई गुस्ताखी हो तो आपसे माफी.
Your role or teacher's role is to create that spark, to create that inquisitiveness, and then they will shine on their own.
So, sir, ऐसा है कि you don't have to be sorry for this, but you are the one organization in India who have actually reached the message of animation, visual effects, and gaming to the nook and corner of India. So, big credit to you on doing that. And so to say, not even all engineers and doctors and MBAs are perfect for a job. They still have to go through the training when they join the organizations, any which way. So we would like to go to Srinivas. You want to show a couple of clips, and I would request you to, do that in a brief and possible shortest way, because we need to hear to the next two guys also before time, and then have question answers.
About the shortest possible
He
video.
promised me that he will not show a film, he'll show a trailer.
I will not be marketing my films here for sure. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Srinivas here from Bangalore, and I am the secretary of ABAI. And I would like to begin with saying that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in all the three stages of skilling industry, probably basic skilling and reskilling and upskilling. So the basic skilling we have our program through ABAI, where we reach the tier 2, tier 3 cities and digitize all the fine art colleges, make them digitally enabled, empower them. In the reskilling part, I've been a part of Arena for the last 25 years, one of the oldest franchisees. So I've been skilling people, probably a few thousands, probably 25, 30K have passed out from my institutions. And in the upskilling, I have the finishing school from ABAI, where we aim to be something like the IIM or the IITs, creating a benchmark institution where we fine-tune the students who pass out from all these academies and colleges and universities through a 3, 6, 9 months program. So to begin with, probably I would like to just to kind of it's a 2-hour session and a lot of speaking has been done. So I thought probably start with a small 3-minute video clip about an ecosystem that we have created back in Bangalore, which helps reskilling and upskilling in a big way, having the latest technologies and the finishing school setup. So probably we'll start with that video, and then quickly I'll probably mention 2 points and then move on. I would not take much of your time, though I have lots to speak. Probably if I get another chance, I'll probably throw more light on the education part too, about a recent experience, if I get a chance. And I promise you that I'll not disappoint if I get a chance. So let's start with a small video clip.
Hello, I have the pleasure of visiting AVGC Center of Excellence in Bangalore. It's a fantastic idea. We've been thinking, talking of it, but they have actually executed it. It's one solid center, a place where so many things could be achieved. Showing me around, it's a fantastic facility. I wish you do more improvements and make India proud.
Yeah, CG Sunil is here, the lady who heads the Center of Excellence. Can I have you stand up? She's been running it successfully for the last 4 years now. Incidentally, we just completed 4 years day before yesterday. So what happens here is when students have already got their training done in various institutions and on various technologies in various institutions and universities, we take the cream in the final year and train them and take them through a fine-tuning courses for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and make them industry ready. This is something which we have been debating for the last 2.5 decades, saying that there is a gap between the industry and academia. But as Mr. Anuj rightly said, being a part of Arena, I would definitely reiterate that everywhere there has to be an Arena student, whether directly or indirectly. So I think our effort is to just see that we fine-tune the students and take them through what is required for the industry. And apart from that, we have the Digital Arts Center program, which fine-tunes or which skills students, very good artists in the Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, and trains them on the technologies, whatever is required. The very good artists, very good sculptors who don't have any exposure to technology. We set up the labs, we provide the hardware, software, and see to it that I handhold them for 3 years. And after that, we have a Mentor 360 program, which is a program where we have tied up with a lot of studios on the back end, and these students are given a chance to work in these studios. The same thing applies for the finishing school too, and even the finishing school has tie-ups with a lot of studios. And finishing school also has certified by NSTC and MSc, of course, and being a Unity and Real authorized training center, and also tie up with a lot of universities. We are trying to integrate our modules into the final semester of degree students. And so the last semester, they have a module where they have to come to our facility and do the course in our facility, where they are taken through some modules which is not available in any training institutions, though a lot of people are coming up with it right now, like a photogrammetry or an NCAM or a motion capture or a face capture or anything to do with that, or virtual production techniques. So these things are taught them. And so we're integrating this program into the final year of all the universities, and we already tied up with at least about 4 universities in Bangalore and trying to tie up with more of them. So overall, there needs to be an ecosystem to develop, and I think first and foremost, we convince the government to support us with an ecosystem where we could try to skill and reskill people, and that has been successfully achieved, and would like to go from here on to bigger things. And coming back to education, just in case if I don't get a chance to speak again quickly on that, I like to say the greatest learnings comes from the most unexpected places. I got to visit a small country called Armenia last month, and I was exposed to a creative hub called Tumo Creative Technologies, which is a hub in a very small country called Armenia, in a place called Yerevan. And what they do is they have built this massive facility, just adding to all the wonderful people on the dais who said that formal education or the school education should have these things incorporated into it. There in Armenia, from the grade 4 onwards to grade 12, they have built a huge facility, massive facility, multiple floors. It's unimaginably huge. I can't even gauge the size of the facility. And that's a country, the entire country is smaller than what Bangalore is. So smaller than Bangalore, but they have this facility where they train kids from 4th grade onwards, not only on creative aspects, but also on the programming aspects, just to add that how it can be biased only to non-technical and not to technical. They have everything there. So you have kid programmers, you have kid animators. I could see grade 4 and grade 5 working very conveniently on Maya and Unreal, which was an opening, which was an eye-opener for me. And apart from that, other wonderful concept they have is called Tumo Box. This tumor box is a mobile van which can be upgraded from 30 computers to 200 computers per truck, or the huge truck, which goes to the villages and stations itself in the village for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and trains the kids of those villages on these technologies, be it programming, coding, or animation, or graphics, or whatever it is, all kinds of technologies. So this concept has already been spread to the other countries, and they have actually proposed to our country also, which is still in under process. But this is a wonderful way of, we are talking about going and digitizing fine art colleges, but these people have gone a step further and sending mobile trucks all over the place and stationed in villages, not even tier 2, tier 3, small villages on the countryside. It is parked for months together, and kids can go there. It can be scaled up to 200 computers per truck, and they go and train them to get trained on the technologies. And as young as 4th grade onwards, it starts. So it's a combination of everything, right from the formal education to skilling, to reskilling, to upskilling, to creating an ecosystem, to bringing the policy in force, to the government support. Everything has to come together to build this entire industry. And I think in Karnataka, we have been fortunate enough to get supported and work on this. And as Abhay, as a wonderful team, we have been working towards it. And we have been proposing this to the national scene also, which we have suggested to Ashishji and Birenji, that on the central level itself also, we could think about digitizing these fine art colleges and including these things in the formal education also. And I think I hope the new policy incorporates all these things. And overall, we're looking at the brightest future. I think this is the best phase of my 25 years career, where I see a lot of things happening on the AVGC front. So if it has to happen, it has to happen now. And I think we all should come together on a national level to scale up the things that one particular state or 2 particular states or 3 particular states are doing, and make it on a whole national level, bring it to a whole national level scenario. And from our state and from our association, we are there always to support whoever wants to do anything from any other state or anywhere else on the central level too. Of course, Viren sir is already there on the panel and the National AVGC Task Force. And we are there from our state level to support on everything that is needed. I think I've maintained my time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Srinivas. It was good. So, Mohit, you have heard everybody and everybody's demands. I would like you to talk about the skilling task force and the outcome as the final draft is getting prepared. And I think the time limit will be 15 minutes so that we can have Chaitanya.
Thank you, sir. You're putting again pressure on skilling first to talk rather than education. So that's perfectly okay. Yeah. So I think one good part which our industry has been seeing over the years is that 4 years of education, parents still say another 2 years you can enjoy. But 3 months of skill training or 6 months of skill training, and you want them to be job ready. I think that's the pressure we see as an industry in the skilling component today. While we were drafting this AVGC task force policy, and my thanks to Biren Sahab, Ashishji, Anujji, Anil sir, Chaitanya, everybody who has been a part of this. I think one good component which we realize is that while we have always been talking about skill gap shortage, which we have been hearing for almost, I think, 2.5 decades now, there are around 1,400 institutions, 1,438 to be more precise, training in AVGC. And around 1,20,000, 22,000 students graduate every year from these training institutions. That's what our data collates and talks about. And if I look into the demand, which I could analyze based on the periodic shifts which have been happening, is around again 1.20 to 1.30 per annum. Now, if you look into 1.30 demand and 1.20 training, I hardly see a difference between the training and the demand which is there. But then also we have been always talking about the demands are not met. I think we try to see what could be the best way to bridge this demand and see that we could scale up the momentum to skill resources in a much more faster and quicker way. During the discussions, we identified that almost all of the production houses today, in fact, I could not find any production house or a studio which does not have an in-house training facility. I think whether it is training 4 people, 5 people, 10 people, or 100 people, everybody has a production facility. The charm of talking to employers, and many of them sitting here, is over the last 2.5 years, the volumes have multiplied. So when I used to get a call earlier, it used to be, I need 50 people, I need 100 people. Now I get calls saying I need 600, I need 800. So, it's quite surprising. So we thought, how could we do this? How can this magic happen overnight that we can foster the resources and put them in the industry? And how can this policy help in bridging up that gap? So trust me, policy is going to be more of a document which can ease the operations of what we are doing right now, or can bring some more momentum to the entire stuff. But what will be more important will be the implementation strategy and the implementation guideline. I think that's the foremost thing, Ashish sir, which I suppose now we need to work as a team together. Ideally, what we really want to do is emphasize more on building up the trainers. If you go back, the number of trainers which we have in the country who are certified over the last 4.5, 5 years are around 4,700. Now, if you have 4,700 trainers and we are talking about 1,20,000 candidates trained, and then Ashish ji's projection of 20 lakh requirements which are there, would be there in the country. I think, trust me, it's next to impossible whatever we do. So what we really need to work on is these academies who are there in the production houses needs to develop more trainers rather than fill their in-house requirements. If that could be taken care, I think we'll have a lot of more zest to come in. The second thing which we thought and realized is that it has not to be always an industry academia connect. It also needs to be an academia connect. So if tomorrow, let's say we are working with CBSE and we are going around to do 100 events with CBSE and talk to 20,000 principals. Now, if I talk to 20,000 principals, I'm assuming 5,000 of them will start some program in media and entertainment. How do I fuel them with trainers? If we do, let's say, more series of Manthan and talk to more universities and colleges, where are we going to get the trainers? You can prepare curriculum, you can develop infrastructure, but where are the trainers? I think we really need to think about this as a very, very serious concern. It may look like everybody is, living at comfort and ease and finding the best talent out, but till the time you don't have the right quality trainers, I think it will be very difficult. So my focus would be to see that. Thank you, Anand. So I think the idea would be, first of all, to understand how do we get these trainers. The second is to see that we could fuel up our resources from both international segment as well as the domestic segment. And the idea was that why don't we pull in the international talent from there to India and train the resources here and ideally build up the talent here. I think that's been few of the cases which we have been working upon. Apart from that, the challenges which have always been talked about, whether it is in terms of software or hardwares, I don't know why we have not so far shifted in training to an openware. If industry is anyways training for 5 months, 6 months, you can train the candidates on openware and then the industry can anyways pump in another 3 months, whether it is apprenticeship or internship. So things could marry. I think there could be a gradual marriage between industry and academia by filling in something which can be an apprenticeship or an internship. I think if that is being done, trust me, most of our issues will get resolved. If every week one person from the industry starts delivering a lecture and that lecture is recorded, we will have a beautiful content to talk about. So I think what is really required is, one side we build up the trainers, the second side is we build up the content. And if we are able to do this successfully, whether it is 10 lakhs, whether it is 20 lakhs, whether it is 50 lakhs, it's just a matter of multiplication, because these last 2 years of COVID have taught us to learn virtually rather than always physically. And I think self-paced learning has really gained a lot of momentum. So I think skilling component will certainly come in, and we'll share that policy with everyone once it's out. But I leave it to MeCat. So I think another big point which we have been really talking about is the creative and the aptitude test. If you look into our industry today, everybody who comes in can be a part, because we believe we don't get people. So whether I am a 12th pass, I am a 12th fail, whether I am a BCom, whether I am a BA, I am a BSc, everybody fits in. It's just that I say that I have an interest for this industry. But when you say I have an interest for this industry, typically you need to be also feeling that you are going to be justifying this industry. So to do that, we have started something called as MECAT, which is Media Entertainment Creative Aptitude Test. This is going to be a test which can actually test your creativity and your aptitude and tell you whether you're going to be good in gaming or whether you're going to be good in animation or vis-a-vis. So I think, you can look into a lot of opportunities which have been created, and there's a lot of machinery which has already been developed on the ground, whether it is by private training institutions, whether it is by government training institutions. All we need is now to build this momentum which has already been set by bringing some good quality of trainers and make them rule the show and take the students to the next layer. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohit. In fact, the MeCAT was just released last month, and MeCAT will be taken up by students who are in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, but we are creating a junior MeCAT, which will be taken up by the students in 5th and 6th grade. And they would decide on selecting these programs by dropping maths or chemistry or physics. And they will take creative arts, performing arts as a mainstream subject, and then they would go and build their pipeline or a way forward into taking up a full-fledged program. Apart from that, one of the points that Mohit didn't mention is that we have suggested starting a 3-year diploma program and also create around 200 ITIs out of the skilling industry, which will be AVGC XR ITIs. And those would actually get a 2-year diploma program and a 3-year diploma program after 10th, which students can take and add the credits, and they can bank their credits into the credit framework that Government of India is creating under the education under UGC. And they would be able to enter directly as a lateral entry into 2nd year of degree program. So this is a way forward that we have created. More so, those people who traditionally come up in the art forms, like people who work in Tanjore or Mahabalipuram, Channapatna, Ramnagaram, where traditionally they have been artists. And if they actually are working with studios after 10th grade doing this diploma, you can actually do recognition of prior learning as per our policy. And you can give them additional credits so that they, instead of going into 2nd year, they can actually go into the 3rd year by recognition of prior learning plus the diploma credits. So all these mechanisms and the framework is made possible for our students from AVGC XR to go to the higher education, and they would be recognized across the globe now. So over to Chaitanya for the final policy framework details.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashish. And Professor Sahasrabuddhe has also put enough pressure on me. So it's fun. Anyway, so I want to start off with 3 very interesting stories that I personally have experienced over the last decade or so. The first was, and we kind of mentioned about open source. So we were asked by IIT Mumbai, along with Professor Sahasrabuddhe, to be part of a open source software hackathon for 2D animation. And we wanted it to be more Indic. Students were mostly non-English speaking. So we said we'll do it on the tails of the Panchatantra. So they had to make a 3-minute piece using this one particular open source 2D software on the Panchatantra. And then IIT had said you can expect about 500 entries. So at the back end, Whistling Woods had prepared its faculty and students and senior students for the 1st level judging, 2nd level judging. We ended up getting 3,500 entries. They had to scramble. People had to work nights to start judging those films. So this is a good example of 2-3 things. One is there is far more interest in this than we believe it is, right? So while we do need to run awareness programs, and I will talk about that, I think it's just a little bit of a push. I think there is a very thin veil that's sitting in between, and you may not need as big a push as you think it is, right? So things like this. The other end of the spectrum was something again that was mentioned, which is another industry, and its correlation. So I get a call from this senior business development person at Tata Consulting saying we want to come and do a 2-week crash course on the media and entertainment industry. So can Whistling Woods set one up for us? I said, yeah, we can, so on and so forth. They said, money is not an object, time is not an object. We're willing to sit 12 hours, 14 hours a day. So we put it together, and literally they were there from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day, right? To go through it. And then on like halfway through the program, I said, why are you guys doing this? And they said, because we want to make a big pitch breakthrough into handling the entire back-end operations for Fox, right? And then we realized it's our role as, or at least Whistling Woods' role as somebody who's educating in media and entertainment is so much different. Can you imagine the fact that an Indian software company, if it's running the backend for Fox globally, it's fabulous, right? And then we kind of approached the second week from a completely different ecosystem because they hadn't told us before because of NDA and all those things. And that enabled us to help them learn better, right? Now, I have no idea whether they actually won the bid, but just the fact that a company like TCS thought of doing this and all of them were senior people. So, that's where I realized that upskilling, reskilling, cross-skilling, trans-skilling, whatever you want to call it, really, really works, is really, really needed, and it's something that we need to prepare ourselves for. The third thing, and I think somebody mentioned about students and they should earn appropriately. So, Whistling Woods, we're you would say a high value, low volume academic institution. We've never taken more than 500 students a year. Our student teacher ratio is 1:8, 1:7. And we track, right? Because a lot of our students come on education loans. Thankfully, because it's us and the group is large, we're able to arm twist banks into giving students personal loans with no collateral or minimum collateral, right? So basically, if you want our group's banking business, you got to do this. So most banks give in. And we track what the repayment is. So we've graduated about 3,500 students in the past 16 years. And about 1,200 of them have been on student loans. And these are sizable amounts. And we haven't had a single monthly EMI default. So when we list our achievements, when I put in my achievements, that is the #1 achievement of Whistling Woods. That we have graduated 3,500 students and there isn't a single monthly EMI default. You have to give value, right? Nobody says that education can't cost more. It can cost more. Medical education costs lakhs. But you have to give value. Your value has to be greater than the time and the money that you are asking from students and parents. So these are three kind of things that have stuck with me in the last many years that we've been in the industry. And when the NEP came along and when the task force idea came along, it was like, thank God, because we've been doing similar stuff for the last 10 odd years already, very organically. And we're like, okay, now we can finally institutionalize this into policy. And then the entire process started. I'm not going to go too much detail into the process because, when the final policy document is out, you guys will all see it. But just to kind of talk about something. So a few things were mentioned by Vishwas, Pooja, and Sandeep, right? And while they were talking, I was like, you should have been there when we were writing the policy because every single thing you mentioned is in there, right? So there is a holistic education structure. So we are covering art, craft, technology, and commerce. You missed out commerce. Commerce is very important, right? For an artist to know if he's doing a background, matte background, don't need to make the sun that's in the corner 4K because that costs render time and render minutes, and that is money. That is the commercial side of the industry. You need to explain that to a student. कि तुमको 4K में sun दिखाना है, इसका ये मतलब जरूरी है. So other time you may be needed, but not for this role, right? So art, craft, technology, and commerce is equally important, obviously at various levels of the pyramid. So our pyramid is a very flat pyramid, like Ashish mentioned. There is executor, manager, creative manager, ideator, right? And we consider it our task to prepare students for the second and the third rung. It's very hard to make somebody an ideator.
can enable a creative environment, but it's very hard to make some. But we can prepare managers and creative managers, obviously. So while doing that, we have to cover these three areas. The other thing that you have to look at is how do you teach? And I'd mentioned it in the earlier session as well, as to what it is that you want to enable the student to do. You want to enable them to be for employment, entrepreneurship, and research. And research is something that we miss out a lot, mostly. So in a group of 100, there may be only 2 students who want to do research. And most educational institutions or people who I have interacted with him say that, "Arey, but सिर्फ 2 बच्चों को research करना है." I said, "हाँ, but 2 ही बच्चे research करेंगे और वो 2 बच्चे बहुत जरूरी है." Right? Because they are the only people who are going to be the sharp end of the stick, who will evangelize the next set of emerging technologies into the industry. The 98 are not going to do it. Out of the 98, 8 will become entrepreneurs, 90 will become part of the workforce, and 2 will actually invent the next object camera motion tracker, right? And we've seen that on campus. Today in our virtual production studio, we've got OSIS and NCAM and all of them, and we use our indigenously built tracker because it's better. It's about to get patented now, right? And the senior faculty who's invented it, I don't know what it's going to be valued at. So the idea is that research is very, very important. Entrepreneurship, everybody's spoken about. I mean, we can't talk about it enough. So building this entire ecosystem out is important. The other thing, and you mentioned narrative arts. Yes, we are a storytelling industry. That's what we do. We don't make anything, we don't build anything. Our product is emotions. We are selling emotions to the world and asking you for money, basically. In order to do that, you have to teach them how to tell stories. Screenwriting has to be a part of everything, right? Or fiction narrative or non-fiction narrative storytelling. This is something you need to cover. It needs to be in the foundational learning for every single student, as well as consumption platforms, because content for cinema is very different for content from TV, is very different for content from OTT, is very different for content from VR, is very different from content for print. You have to make sure they understand which platform, what is the platform primacy. Yes, it will be modified into other platforms as all IPs are, but there has to be a primary platform, right? So these are the kind of things that are included in the holistic general structural base of the policy recommendations. Then when we kind of get down to specific ones, yes, there is a 4-year undergrad program, which is a full choice-based credit system, where students, if the recommendations are accepted the way they are, and I hope they are, within the same program, they can choose 2D animation, 3D animation, gaming, comics, pre-visualization, alternative animation. One more, Ashish, aur kaun sa tha? XR also, yeah. So essentially, within one undergrad program, they start at foundation and then they kind of branch off into a funnel kind of program. That then takes them to undergrad. We recommend that they don't do postgrad right away. Please work for some time. And then if you think it's necessary, please come and do postgrad. The postgrad is more for transitional students who want to move out of other careers into AVGC and hence want to do postgrad. For them, there is a bridge program we want them to do for 6 months before they get into the masters, because otherwise they won't kind of understand what's going on. That's the whole system and process is in place. There is we are planning for folk artists. We are planning for tier 2, tier 3 cities. We are starting to put together, rather we've put together a broad idea on, what is the cluster of villages or cluster of people, X kilometers of radius or within, there needs to be one educational institution, right? While Mr. Kakkar will make sure that he goes into every single town, every single village with population of whatever, 200 and above. Obviously, there can't be a higher end technical education at that level. It's not possible. It's not structurally possible. building twinning programs so students are able to start there and move into some of the larger cities, then go back and work there. So there are lots of these things that are built into the policy recommendation. Awareness. Now this is dual, right? You have to make, there's indirect messaging and there's direct messaging. When a 4th standard student or a 2nd standard student sees, the parent sees as part of the timetable, regular timetable subjects, maths, English, history, art, color theory, narrative, something, right? For them, it's the same. For them now, it's as important as the other. That's indirect messaging. Direct messaging is what the mutual fund industry does, right? That this is this fantastic, great investment thing which can do so well. And we are that. We are this fantastic, great industry that essentially can sell India to the world. And, you know, your kids can travel the world and do great while having fun. So there is both indirect messaging and direct messaging, and both are equally important. If you don't have one, the other fails, right? And if you just have indirect messaging without anybody coming out and saying that AVGC is great, or, you know, media and entertainment is this fantastic industry, it doesn't work, right? So that there's a 360 kind of messaging campaign being planned as part of the policy recommendation as well. And lastly, MBA, somebody mentioned about, I think you talked about MBA, right? So 2008 is when Whistling Woods and Manipal started India's first MBA in media and entertainment. One of the verticals in 2008 was animation. Because back then, 4 out of the top 10 box office films were animated films. Today, it's more more visual effects films rather than animated films. So for us, we kind of, it's a really, really large industry. 70% of Hollywood's money comes from outside the US. Only 10% of India's money comes from outside India. And that too, 80% of that comes from diaspora. Right? So the whole kind of ecosystem is we have to take this as a business and take it global. So this is, yeah, it's basically it. And RPL, Ashish and Mohit have mentioned. So yeah, these are some of the things that are part of the policy. And at the end of it, this is not, it's not going to happen. You're not going to see anything in 1 year. It's going to take some time to see it, right? And the most common kind of error that we do is we assume that a 5-year plan is 5 one-year plans. It's not. For all you know, for the first 2 years, you won't even see anything visible. And then for the next 3 years, you'll make up suddenly for whatever the 5-year plan is. So the idea is to stick to the plan. Once it's based on solid ground reality and you know what you're doing makes sense, then you just need to stick to it and eventually it will work out. Which is what we've done at Whistling Woods. The first 3 years of Whistling Woods, it was hard, right? Because we had to convince parents. And most children would be dragging their parents to the campus saying, I want to study. Well, back then we had only film and animation. Today, it's the parents who drag the kids to Whistling Woods saying, you want to do film or animation or gaming? Please go do a degree program, right? So that transition, we've seen it. And I think it's very much possible. It's not out of the realm of possibility. You just have to stick to it, which is what, I mean, we're also recommending in the policy that figure out a way of getting people to kind of stay the course and not waver. So I don't know. I've covered everything, I think.
Yeah, I think mostly covered. As Vishwas was saying, we have designed the nomenclatures as Bachelor of Visual Arts for 4 years, Masters of Visual Arts for 2 years. We have Bachelor of Creative Arts and Sciences. And we are talking to several universities to merge arts and sciences together and many universities have already done that for that matter. Ahmedabad University was the first one to do it in 2019 with us. At the same time, we have applied for new nomenclatures like Bachelor of Experiential Arts and Bachelor of Graphic Arts. which are under approval with the UGC. And so much so that we have gone to IITs and many engineering colleges to make sure that animation, filmmaking, visual effects, and animation and visual effects technology is a part of their curriculum in the final year. And IIT Delhi was the first one with Dr. Kalra and Dr. Subhashish Banerjee, where we started this program, and it's been a very successful program. At the same time, this year with IIT Jodhpur, we started MTech in AR and VR with 2 batches. One batch is a full-time 2-year batch, and one batch is a weekend 3-year batch. And in one batch, we have 42 people, one batch we have 47 people. So at the engineering level and even at the university level, it has started quite well. So when Dr. Anuj Kakkar says why numbers, the numbers are very well required because the government and everybody asks you, where are you going to reach in the next 10 years? And there has to be an estimation, otherwise no policy is made because they need to have the benchmark and the milestones. Second is that the reason why we want to have a pyramid is because everybody's role is very important. The person who comes from the nook and corner also is needed by the industry. A person who comes from university is also needed by the industry. And the person who never goes to school, but is an extremely great painter is also required by the industry. So we need to accommodate each one of them and make sure that we give them an upskilling and reskilling program to retrofit themselves into the industry. And then there was a diktat which came from the UGC that anybody teaching undergrad had to be a master's, teacher has to be the master's degree holder. Anybody teaching master's degree has to be a PhD holder. Now in our industry, we had none. So how do we really structure that? So we went and made a representation to the UGC and the Education Ministry, and we got an amendment done, and which is already been executed, and the GR has been passed in our favor, that in our industry, a professor of practice and a faculty of practice is allowed. So if you are a practicing professional, if you are a filmmaker or you are a gamer, you can come and teach.
5 years, right? I think.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
That's
So
a very big thing. Otherwise,
yeah. So
I think the GR is public. It's public.
it's
right?
already public.
Yeah. So we can, send it out to people.
Yeah.
So if
So-
you know people who are interested in teaching and are worried about the officialness of the teaching, they can join as faculty of practice. I think if you finish 10 years, you can straight away join as professor of practice.
So having said that, we actually could manage with so many speakers, we could just manage in time. And we would open it for a quick 2 or 3 questions. Yeah, if you can have these 3 people who have 4 people, quick questions, if you can ask the questions. Yeah. Just be precise and ask the right question, okay?
Very good evening to the
Right,
panel.
matlab?
Very good evening to the panel. For both sides, I have got one questions.
Yeah.
To the industry, when Ashish sir opening remarks told, certain number of talents required in next few years. Now every industry, they are constantly going with automation and robotic process. Do you still prefer that numbers is required for industry side? And to this one education side, everybody told that lot of talents are coming from tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Do instruction of education for them is in mother tongue or any other language? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, who you want to take?
No. So we are going to train the people who will create the robot. Right? So RPAs, repetitive performance activities, which is generally what automation handles. About 1% of our industry is RPA. And most of it has already been handled by AI. Right? So there is very little RPA work which is not done by AI, which exists in our industry. A lot of the times, conceptually, let me give you an example for VR, right? So originally when the VR cameras came out, each image would come in separately from each lens and the computer would stitch it together. Very soon, the camera manufacturers realize that algorithm is not that complicated, right? You just have to match points. So if you're able to visually match points, you can give a stitched image right out of the camera, pre-stitched or from the firmware. It took 6 months. So it's done already. I don't need to do anything. So most of RPA that is needed in our industry is taken care of by AI. We don't have this automation problem. In fact, we have a problem where, sorry, but people
My question was.
People shouldn't be robots.
No, just 1 minute. I'll answer it.
They shouldn't be robots.
I'll answer it in different way. See, in car manufacturing or pharma manufacturing, every car is the same except for the color. Every bottle packed or every syringe packed is the same. So you are dealing with a team which is dealing with a machine which is doing the same thing. In animation and visual effects, every scene is different. Every shot has to be planned differently. And that's why certain amount of automation is already done in the pipelines. That's what Biren was talking about, that we are far better in many ways from many other countries to build the pipeline. We can quickly figure out what combination to use for this, handling this shot versus this shot, and who would work on this shot, because we know the skills mapping also. And that's why automation will be there, but it will be limited. And it would not be, of course, done by robots, but it will have to be done by the production team in a different way. But every scene is different. That's why we need to handle it differently.
So I have broadly the same perspective, but slightly differently. I agree with him that as any industry, actually, as the industry matures, there is much more scope for automation, and it exists even in our industry also. Since our industry is a creative industry, of course, the scope of automation will not be as high as many other industries, like say manufacturing or some other industry. But at the same time, while there is the industry growth is taking place, the technology is also growing. It's quite possible today. What Chaitanya is saying, what Ashish is saying, that with this kind of technology, we can do only this much of automation. But believe in me that in 2 years, 3 years, technology will also advance. Okay, our computing power will get advanced. Okay, and then we will further look into that. What are the different things which we were thinking earlier we cannot automate, but now we can automate. So it is always, it's a constant learning. But very good question.
So, I wanted to give you what is the difference between the normal engineering, medical, law, and chartered accountancy and creative industry. For one question, there are so many people can give different answers. That's the creative industry.
No, I'll give another answer. No, I was always told that creative industry is protected by AI's development, but it's actually, we did a test. Elon Musk started an AI company and he dropped it halfway through. And I had the opportunity to access it. I gave 2 keywords. Dinosaur in a highway. So if you give these keywords, it is supposed to give a news article. So I tried a dinosaur in a highway. It gave 1-page article which was looking fantastic. It doesn't look like machine made at all. It started that this highway in this particular state at this particular time suddenly had a very major accident because of one baby dinosaur suddenly started running in the road, and the guy who was driving was charged for overspeeding, stated by the police officer. This whole thing came instantly. Then I thought, okay, let me try my luck one more time. So when I refreshed, completely a different story came, and I refreshed. Every time I was getting a new story. So which means we are, the creative industry also could be affected by AI. Like for example, rigging is one boring and laborious process. Now in just 2 seconds, you can get your character rigged. The software will understand your fingers, fingertip, everything, and it will put the bone in right place. So there is a challenge coming, but at the same time, when the ATM came, people thought the banking industry will be finished. But because of ATM, a lot of people came and put the money in the banking. So similarly, when you have more tools, there will be more creative possibilities. It will happen. And your question about the language issue, you asked about the mother tongue for the tier 2, tier 3 cities. We always try to start a mixed. Suppose if it's in Chennai, we try to teach both in Tamil and English. If it is Bangalore, we try to do Kannada and English. But at the same time, we also tell the students to study English. So we run some very simple spoken English courses so that by the time they finish the degree, they feel comfortable communicating. Otherwise, even if they're a great artist, they will not be hired.
I think I'll take just 1 minute on elaborating on the language thing, sir.
So we can have more questions.
Just one minute.
Oh.
We went to one of the most language-centric states of the country. And to our luck, we took the local language magazines with us. I circulated it to 5 people, and all 5 said, do you have the English version? I think today when the regional industry is growing phenomenally well, whether it is Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Hindi, Bengali, the challenge is that are we still keeping up with our heritage, our culture, our tradition, and our storyline? If yes, then yes, the content is available, the teachers are available, the institutions are available. But it has to be something where we have to all believe that our language, our tradition, and our culture fits in and is presentable not just nationally, but internationally as well. I think so, no challenge on the training side of it.
Yeah, another view is current day students, they don't know Tamil or English or English or Kannada. Both are average.
So one simple thing will sort it out. If you have 10 Tamil students, give them a Tamil instructor, they will sort it out. Simple. Yes, another question, please.
Yes,
Oh,
I had a question.
That table, sorry. Yeah.
Hi, good morning. It's afternoon actually. So last year in December, I started to pursue a world record for the Guinness World Record for the fastest man on earth animator. I wanted to make that. So for that, I designed a software, specifically a software that takes track of my time and everything. So as if I see now, like in India, the functioning of Indian Animation Education Institute is gone rogue. Somewhere it is rogue. Like my teachers are not able to see my vision.
What's your question?
The question is, it's not a complaint.
What's your question?
The question is, how do I make myself to get there? Like I have to make world record. So it's
How do you make yourself?
A Guinness World Record holder for the fastest animator on earth. So I want a change in the animation industry of India, that they could able to see my vision.
What's your question?
The question is like, how do I make my teachers, my faculties visualize?
Let's have a conversation.
Okay,
outside.
let's have an offline conversation.
Get in touch outside.
Yeah,
We'll
also,
sort your
just
problem.
One question.
And one suggestion to you, that frame your question. You will get all your answers.
Understood, sir.
Thanks. Yes.
The lady in the
Right there.
blue.
Good evening, all the panelists. So it's more of a suggestion from my end. I want to take the point from Pooja ma'am that yes, we should impart the education. It should not be just technical, it should be logical as well. So it should not be limited that we are teaching the students that this is the start button or the task bar or the menu bar, but we should also tell them what is the IP address, because such things are
Madam,
pre-assumed.
just 1 minute, you mistaken completely. Yeah, we are not talking about that. So to do animation, you need to be a good visualizer. You have to have design thinking. You should be able to understand color theory to do right painting. You need to understand the source of light if you have to become a good compositor. So we are talking about teaching that in the school so that they actually select the right career. So it's not about the bar right now. It's not about the button. Button and bar will come much later in life.
Yes, sir, agreed. But I am talking about the basic technical knowledge. It should be logical as well, because such things are presumed by the university teachers.
Yes, madam, you need to
have that conversation offline.
Conversation offline.
So animation used to happen long before there was software. and animation will continue to happen long after there is software. Software is a tool for the time, right? It has got nothing to do with animation. Animation is here. 1 square foot of real estate, remember.
Yes. One last question here and then we'll close. No, just 1 minute. This gentleman here.
Sorry, Ram.
All other questions we will take offline. No, there are many questions. Before, yeah, there one here,
so,
one there.
yeah.
Before Shalini puts her glasses like this and looks at me again like that. So
My name is Vikrant and I've recently joined Viren's team at Technicolor. So my question kind of alludes to what Pooja was talking about, creativity and creative expression back in school. Right? If we look at the education system in India right now versus let's say an IB or an IGSC, where there's a lot of focus on exploration, discovery, CBSE and ICSE, no offense, but the focus is on learning and delivering that learning on an exam paper, right? So from a policy perspective, how can we, what are your thoughts and what are the inputs to, how do we evolve?
Yeah, I got your point. So I think we mentioned it a couple of times. Let me just talk about it in a little more detail. You need to give as much importance to, broadly speaking, the right brain functionalities as you're giving to the left brain functionalities. So like you have physics, chemistry, maths as subjects, you need to have communication studies, whatever, visual arts, basics of something, right? Anything which is more creative in part of the creative industries, that is what will enable students to explore that part of their mind, their brain, and B, it will also make sure that people understand that this is real education. And it has to be part of the timetable. It cannot be extracurricular. In fact, 8 time pe tum, anyway, forget it. I don't want to go down that route. But what I'm saying is it has to be part of the curriculum. It should have at least 25% weightage. You have 25% weightage to languages, 25% weightage to social science, 25% weightage to science, and 25% weightage to creative arts. That is, right now it's like 60% science, 30% language, 10% social studies, and creativity is extracurricular. It doesn't make sense, right? This is, by the way, it's not like the governments don't want to do this. It's not like the state boards don't want to do this, right? The city we're sitting in has something going on right now, which is very similar in structure. It's a pilot that they're at. CBSE, we wrote the curriculum. Westlingwood wrote the curriculum for media studies as an academic elective for the CBSE board for the 11th and 12th grade 12 years ago. And we did a pilot project with 15 schools across the country, including teacher training. I don't have the bandwidth to take it to scale all across the country. That is the training division of the CBSE to do. But it's not like they didn't want to do it. They ran into the same problem that Mohit mentioned, which is they can't find faculty, right? So it's there, it's happening. We're a relatively low per capita income country, right? So putting a lot of effort in these kind of things takes time. I agree it should have happened a long time ago. Let's just feel nice that it's happening now. The NEP officially puts it as a thing where you have to have, so they are saying 30%, which is 5% more than what I'm saying. I'm very happy, right? So I think over the next, well, my kids are now both almost done. So, their kids will probably experience much more well-rounded K-12 education structure.
Sorry, just 1 minute. No. I've already got a mark. It's already 4:30. No. उसके बाद बाहर ले लेंगे. So. एक चलेगा.
She likes me more than you.
One last question.
Yeah, my question is for Anuj ji. You talked about 3 million and 30
million. We can't see you.
All right. My name is Vishesh Mehta. My question is for Anuj ji. You talked about 3 million or 30 million. दोनों में से एक होगा. So, my question is to be on the path for 30 million. Is it a good idea to teach at schools basic workflows like rigging, high poly to low poly, or should it be left for later on only? It shouldn't be taught in 9th and 10th, etc.
this aspect has been adequately dealt with in the proposed policy also. A lot of thinking has gone into it as to what is the age appropriate teaching which needs to happen for him to ultimately become part of the industry. I think it's a little more elaborate answer, which is outside the scope of this forum, but this is something which has been dealt with. But just give you an inkling. See, if you're talking class 6 and 7, you're really talking about inculcating the create or just developing the creativity in that person. You don't have to make him an animator at that stage. That's not what the intention is. Then as he progresses, it's going to evolve, and this has been thought through in the policy itself.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Madam, you can take your question offline. But a big thank you to all of you, Sandeep, Pooja, Chaitanya, Vishwas, Dr. Saab has gone, but Anujji, Arulji, Mohit, and our actor Srinivas. Big thank you to all of you that you didn't fall asleep, and you've got skilling and education perspective. We will take all the questions offline as we go out. You are most welcome. Extremely sorry we couldn't accommodate rest
Thank
of the
you.
questions. And
Thank
over to
you.
you, Shalini.
Yeah. So thank you all the panelists of this mega skilling and education session. I request everybody to please stay seated. Coming up is a very, very interesting gaming session where we have stalwarts of gaming of the three biggest gaming stalwarts of India and the world are going to join us in the next session. Stay here, don't move from your seats. We're going to start the next session, which is building a sustainable gaming legacy in India. Joining us in this session would be Mr. Nitesh Mithushen, founder and joint managing director of Nazara Technologies, Mr. Sai Srinivas Kiran, co-founder and CEO of MPL, and Mr. Harsh Jain, co-founder and CEO of Dream11. So one by one, we are going to have conversations with these three stalwarts of Indian gaming industry. I request the two hosts of this session, Mr. Biren Ghosh and Mr. Rajan Navani, to please come on the dais. The two hosts are going to be present on the dais, while the three guests are going to join virtually one by one, starting with the Nazara Technologies person, Mr. Nitesh Mithushen. I request Biren and Rajan are here.
There are three, check. There are three things happening this afternoon. Am I audible? Not yet. Am I audible? Not yet. Podium mic, please. Podium mic. Am I audible? Check. Am I audible? No. This is I'll take another mic. Am I audible? Am I audible? Not to you, I am. Am I audible? Yes. All right. Okay, we're doing three things. First of all, as a bonus extra, you are going to witness the release of a landmark report. Okay, it's available. If you don't get the report on your own, I can sell it to you for 10,000. How much? Yeah. Okay. So that's point number one. Point number two. There are three things happening this afternoon. You have to give your nazar to Nazara. You have to make your dreams come true with Dream11. You have to make sure that you join the Indian cricket team so you can get a free MPL t-shirt. And everything else you give to Jet Synthesis. So that's the lineup. It's really exciting. There's another bonus extra. For those who leave after the session, they will be leaving their cocktails and dinner to those of us who stay. But in case you want cocktails and dinner, you are very welcome to stay. Okay, and Shalini, who's actually paying for all of this, is encouraging you to stay. So I would suggest that you stay for cocktails and dinner.
So I think we're going to, thanks Biren, and of course we look forward to a very interesting session, and I'll come to the idea of this session. It's about really holistically capturing gaming the way we perceive it in India, gaming and esports, this entire ecosystem. And I think at the end of this hour, you will get a fair idea of really what are the different components and how different gaming leaders are looking at, this industry in the future. So to begin with, we have a background paper on electronic sports in India, released by the Federation of Esports Associations of India. And we have the representatives from there, Abhishek, Ishan, Siddharth, please come over and we can release this report.
Very good evening. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Rajan and Biren, for having Federation of Electronic Sports Association invited and play a role here. We all understand AVGC is, of course, a very uprising, emerging, important sector. The G there is what brings us all here on the dais. The policy framework around gaming is something that's shaping out in this country, specifically over the last 1 year. We've played our part as a Federation for Electronic Sports. We've had the good support of Rajan, also Biren, and various other industry stakeholders. Some of them would be participating later in fact, in this very session. This report essentially is a compilation of what is the larger policy framework that we feel necessitates industry support, makes it an athlete-first outlook, and sort of brings the country together. FEI is a body of 26 states and region chapters. Before I go, however, let me also invite my other two fellow founding members, Siddharth Upadhyay, President for the Uttar Pradesh chapter. Just some quick words.
No, I think you guys have added a lot of good content to it, so I don't want to dilute it further. So I would just say that we should continue with the routine and the plan that we had for the day. So all the best. I'm sure you're having a very good time, and by the time you go back, you'll be carrying and leaving a lot of good content. Because content is selling nowadays, and we want some good money to be made. So please carry on, and thank you so much for inviting me over. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You are going to see esports play a bigger and bigger role in this entire system. And for those of us who are not as athletic as one was before, there is a future for all of us in the esports domain. So with those words, I'm going to come to the panel of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is about building a sustainable gaming legacy in India. You've already heard, for those of you who are here in the morning, that there are many thoughts afoot as to how gaming can be enabled. And as far as I know, there are so many different verticals that when we last counted it, Rajan, there were about, can we have another mic for Rajan as well, please? Yeah, we go. When we last counted it, I think there were more than 10 or 11 gaming associations itself that were looking at various different sectors in this industry. But I think what we will do is that since we are a little bit short of time, I will, someone can let me know when we have Nitish on the line. He's supposed to be on at 6:45, sorry, 4:45, 16:45. So as soon as he's on board, Nitish Mitterson is the founder of Nazara. For those of you who follow anything to do with shares, there are not many companies you can follow in the AVGC sector. But Nazara, since its listing, and I keep following Manish's Facebook and Nitish's Facebook, the astronomical growth that they have had in capturing value, in growing revenues, in growing profits, and seeing how the value of something grows would be great. I have requested Nitish and Rajan that for the next time we get together, we'd like to have a panel also with investors, so that the young people in the room who are startups and people who have mature studios can look at how do we grow value in this industry. But today's topic really is to see that within the overall gaming sphere, we have three people that do many different things. And Rajan, you yourself are such a major player, owner, investor across the spaces. So I think it's going to be a one-stop for everyone to get the whole canvas of this thing. So would you like, before we can have a little chat at the end, we're going to talk about what happens. So do we have Nitish on the line yet? Yes? No? You let me know as soon as he comes. So I will just let Rajan start, but I will introduce a concept to you. Gaming is a social need. Now, you know how old this idea is, Rajan? 2,500 years ago, there was a king called Herodotus. I don't know if I got the name right, but you can catch me over cocktails. I'll give you the right name. He started big stadiums like you see in Ben-Hur, like you see in the Colosseum in Rome, etc. And why did he do this? Because they were going through a very difficult time economically in Greece. People were highly depressed. He didn't know how to keep his kingdom happy. And so he built large stadiums and made them play games. And games then that provides that social need in order to keep people together. And you see this very often in the case of our own country. If you take cricket, for example, when you are in that large stadium in Eden Gardens or even a smaller stadium in Bangalore, the person on the left or the right of you, you don't know his bank balance, you don't know his economic status, but it's a social leveler. So games are a social need. And for someone who knows a little bit about every element of the gaming industry, we now have online Nitish. Very good to see you.
Hi, Viren.
Welcome to Summit FX this afternoon, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and for Rajan to have a conversation with you. And I always enjoy listening to you. So I've just told everybody that if they want to know how to make their share value go up, how to make their revenues go up, how to make their profit go up, how to make their user base go up, they're going to get $10 million of advice for free in the next 15 minutes. So it's over to you guys.
Thanks, Biren. And, it's great. Thanks, Nitish, for joining us here. And, we've enjoyed a great camaraderie in building this industry. You've, of course, done some great stuff from there on. So maybe we begin with, this subject for today, really. And, we felt that we will talk, about how do you really build a sustainable gaming legacy in India, right? And how are you thinking of Nazara? What would success mean like 10 years, 15 years from today? And where is that opportunity in India? We have a very large audience here, a large audience in person, a large audience hearing us. And, this is a platform, Nitish, where we bring, the policy makers, and all morning we've had discussions around various aspects along with industry and multiple stakeholders to build a consensus and, a way to move forward on some of these industries that are distinctly important, right? So maybe introduce a little bit yourself, talk a little bit about your journey, and then we can get into a deeper conversation.
Sure. No, thank you for having me. Very happy to be there. So a quick background of myself. I'm the founder of Nazara Technologies, founded this company 22 years back when I was in college. I was 17 or 18 then. And I really had a dream that time that, India will become very large in the gaming space in the years to come. When I started, I didn't really realize I was starting maybe a decade or more too early. But hindsight is like that, right? But here we are 22 years later. We managed to finally do our IPO, which was a milestone for us last year. It's been a good listing for us. We've learned a lot in the last 18 months and very excited with the future. I think the dream I and my team had it 22 years back about India becoming very large in gaming is a lot more tangible today, right? I think a lot of large macro factors have emerged and changed over the last 20 years, starting with, device penetration of hundreds of millions of smartphones in the hands of the consumer, of, fast data, low cost data that is available to the masses, and digital payments, like a prime minister said,
only recently, 40% of global digital payments are happening in India every day. I think we've gone way ahead of most Western countries on this front. And I think these three factors, macro factors put together, along with a lot of risk capital available now, are actually a very potent combination and the perfect storm, I would say, for gaming to explode in India. We are already seeing it happen in terms of downloads. Today, India is the number one or number two country in terms of games downloaded, every day or every month. We are still lagging on the monetization. We are not even in top 10, but I think we will catch up fast. And I think another 3, 4, 5 years later, you will have gaming as an industry in India generate much more revenues than all other entertainment industries put together. So I think we are staring at what's going to become a very serious industry, huge opportunity, and we at Nazara are very excited about it.
So, Nitesh, we've collaborated on on esports through Nodwin Gaming. You are building various aspects of the gaming ecosystem, as Nazara. And I think, when you look into the future, right, you look at 10 years from today, you look at Nazara particularly, right, the kind of assets, you're doing different pieces of gaming and, and you building your own vision, right, for how you see Nazara and gaming plan out. So what are some of the steps you're taking today, for how would you look at the industry particularly shaping up, over the next 10 years? So that we can, align larger sets of groups of stakeholders to see whether we can create it in a meaningful manner for India. Any thoughts around that?
See, I'm convinced that this is the decade of gaming in India. And two big things are going to happen. India is going to become a very large domestic consumption market for gaming. And therefore, for gaming companies in India, it's a huge opportunity. Also, gaming companies globally will take India a lot more seriously as a market compared to what they have done till now. The other side is, I think there's a huge opportunity for gaming companies in India to also start making serious impact in the gaming industry globally. As you know, it's hundreds of billions of dollars of opportunity globally. And I think we're reaching that level of maturity and opportunity where gaming companies in India can go out, can buy global gaming companies or develop products out of India, which can dominate globally. I think that's going to be equally exciting. This made in India for the world, made in India for India and made in India for the world can truly happen in the gaming industry. And I think all of us, including the government, including associations such as CII and the industry, must come together to make sure that we pave the way and remove any friction, remove any resistance that comes in this way, because this is really a golden opportunity for India to capitalize on.
So Nitish, I recall we had this first conversation. You are one of the first people we spoke to when we were putting the first CII Summit FX together. I think you were in Mandwa during the lockdown days and we had that lovely conversation. I have a question for you. Unlike animation, visual effects is of course part of the filmmaking and the television process. But in animation, we have not yet got to our full stride in creating franchises locally. I think games has got that phenomenal base, in the last 3 to 5 years. And you're talking about, how you can take such franchises to a global market. So is there a different type of consumer thinking that takes place in gaming companies as compared to other companies in AVGC, which are more production studio oriented? And is there something that we can actually learn from the gaming industry and actually spread that? Because in other parts of the world, you can have a franchise that starts with a comic, goes to a movie, goes to a game, but it can also go in different directions, right? So do you have anything to share about how is Nazara, working towards consumer franchises, and what is the tip and the insight you can give to the audience here?
See, I think a lot of the gaming companies, right, are having a product first approach now versus animation, maybe, which has had a services first approach, right?
Right.
And we are starting to see tangible evidence that studios and developers in India can develop for the globe and succeed. I'll give you one example. A Mumbai-based company, which is now acquired by Nazara, and we work very closely with them, launched a product for young kids in the segment of 2 to 7. The product is called Kidopia, and it's under the gamified learning segment where kids learn something while playing games. And as you know, you can't keep young kids away from digital devices in any case. So it's a important pain point that a product solves for children. Now, this product, Kidopia, has consistently been top of the charts in the US Apple Store in that segment, right? It's, I think, at number 2, which is, I think, phenomenal. You're developing a product here in Mumbai for kids in the US and competing with the best and succeeding. And I think that's one small example of what is truly possible. I think what has held back the gaming opportunity or Indian developers to develop for the world has largely been the not lack of programming skills or lack of animation, but there's been a lack of, I would say, game design capabilities, which historically has been there because India was always a very casual gaming market. We didn't have a lot of exposure to PC and console and all compared to other markets. But over the last decade or so, that has really improved. A lot of the global studios set up back offices here in Bangalore and Hyderabad and Chennai, trained a lot of local talent. And now a lot of this local talent is able to actually come together to, produce such content. So I think that's the big opportunity, which I really think can be done. Now, once you create a gaming first IP, I think there is huge opportunity to take this into the different segments, whether it's animation, whether it's, for example, in Kidopia, right? We are already looking at partnering with a US studio to produce animated cartoons around it. We've already launched merchandise around our key IPs, which is selling extremely well on Amazon and all in the US. So I think you can actually take gaming first IPs and then expand them into the entire spectrum of franchising. And that is also a large opportunity.
Thanks. I have one more question before I pass it back to Rajan. Recently it was very touching to see a post from you for one of your financial mentors, Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, and he really was such a mover and shaker of different spaces where he touched something and made it happen. What are the insights you can share from having someone like that? Because most people in our industry, they come from the creative side or they come from the technology side. And the financial value engineering, which is so important in building a big company, is not something that ordinarily is known to folks around, right? There are no big MBA finances or people in this business. So is there a lesson or is there an insight you can share with people who may be starting in startups and other startups? How will they go and find such a person who can help to on the side of their creativity or their technical skills to help them build their financial value?
Sure. No, Rakesh, was very supportive of us, and more than his money, he gave us a lot of time in the last 4 or 5 years. I think 30, 40 meetings with him, over the last 4 or 5 years was extremely valuable for us. I think he came from a, value investing perspective. So he was very focused on startups also generating cash flows, going after tangible businesses. He didn't like a lot of loss-making companies in the new age businesses, so he preferred profitable companies. But what I found really valuable in his thinking, right? He was not coming from the gaming industry. He was coming from the finance industry,
right?
And obviously, he didn't understand the nuances of the gaming industry,
right?
I'm not sure if I got lost. Yeah, he didn't understand the nuances of the gaming industry necessarily. But what he saw was the big opportunity, which I just spoke about, 10 years gaming opportunity, which really, rang a bell with him. And the second thing is, he could cut through a lot of storytelling that we would do to get to the crux of it and call a spade, look at financial numbers and, see whether it makes sense or not. I think the other advice he always said is focus on fewer things, which in Nazara we don't necessarily do, but nevertheless, and dominate the industry that you do, right? Monopolize it. I can share freely now. So much time has elapsed, right? For example, we had a discussion. Rajan, you'll find this interesting, right? We had a discussion about purchasing Real Cricket a couple of years back, and he was very gung-ho that Nazara must do it. We didn't. That's a separate story, but that's what his thinking, that dominate the space you're operating in, try and do tangible business. So I think it's important, just coming off that, it's important for startups in this space or in any space today, I would say, to focus on real metrics versus vanity metrics. Not necessarily profitability very early on, because today in India, you have a lot of capital available to you. And the focus needs to be to scale fast and to grow fast, right? So very small startup trying to be profitable may not necessarily be the right thing. At the same time, focusing on real metrics versus vanity metrics. I'll give you an example. Let's say a developer comes and tells me, I've got 1 million downloads for my game. To me, that's a vanity metric, right? A real metric would be what's your DAU, what's your MAU, what's your daily active versus monthly active. What are your retention numbers? What is your virality or organic pull to your app or product? So I think focusing on those real metrics, and if your real metrics are looking good, then very aggressively infusing capital and scaling up, right, is the way to go. I know you have Harsh coming on later today, and that's what he's done, right? Got onto a product with fantastic retention rates, saw it, and then scaled it dramatically. And I think that's the opportunity for Indian startups and entrepreneurs.
No, I think Nitish, you've really outlined that point beautifully of how we take a gaming first Indian IP out and then do so much around it. And I think one thing the audience should know, the way you talked about real cricket and the way we had Nodwin, 50%, and now Nazara owns majority there. We sit together, we collaborate. And I think Nitish and us are one good example of how you're invested in the industry first. And, as the industry size and pie grows, we will all grow and the whole ecosystem will grow, right? I mean, we have cricket, you run cricket, we compete, we collaborate. And I think that's the spirit in which India's opportunity needs to get unleashed, because it's a massive opportunity. I think through the morning, the government agrees, stakeholders agree, everyone agrees, and I think, as we build good, strong companies out of India, the world's ability to kind of, or to enable us to become world class, I think let's put it that way, is going to be driven by how we run and build our companies in the future. And, we collaborate, we challenge, but one thing is there, we'll definitely, get a large pie of what the future holds in this. So again, thanks, Nitish, for being here with us and for sharing how you see your legacy, shaping up in the years to come. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm not sure we had Nitish for the last minute or so, but that's okay. I think we can send him a message and thank him profusely, unless he would like to add something and get back in. Yeah.
I'm back, Bere.
Oh, he's here.
Oh, great. So, okay.
We just lost you on the video.
Lost you on the screen. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We lost you on the screen and we didn't know what happened. But yes, I'm sure that the Nazara.
Maybe last comment from you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Rajan. I think there's so much opportunity that all of us need to have positive intent and positive effort, and we will all surely succeed together. And I think you guys at CII, etc., have a huge role to play to ensure that you also bridge the industry to the government, because I think the government can, and the government is already, supporting. You saw the AVGC come up, etc. A lot of positive noises coming out there, but I think it's just such a big opportunity that organizations like CII can do a lot to surface it in front and make sure we all put our best foot forward.
Thank you. Yes, that's been the intention. I think very unusually in the AVGC industry, Nitish, from the first time that we did this virtually, CII Summit FX 2 years ago, was the first time we brought 5 different ministries together. And from then till now, even fortunately, of course, we were just an invitee. But when the task force came out this year, the 5 ministries that we had in our first session are very much a part of it, because part of what we do is services and commerce and industry and jobs and stuff like that. Part of what we do obviously is, is electronics and IT. Part of what we do is content, which obviously is the purview of the information and broadcasting ministry. I was telling them they should change their name to information and image making, because broadcasting is one vertical now. And then of course you have the higher education, which fortunately we had a 10-member panel. It was half on the left side was skills, on the right was education, and our moderator was trying to be the person in the middle of all of that. But so all of these stakeholders are together. But I think that power to all of you who have shown the way of what value creation can really be, I do believe that we will hopefully settle the newness of the games industry as it applies to many of these stakeholders. And I think when that happens, we will be able to find a clearer and a faster passage. We used to drive far more quickly from Bangalore to Mysore when the speed breakers weren't there, but it's a little slower now. But that's going to happen in the games industry. We're going to make a really super highway and hope that Nitish, we will follow the lead. Many people in the room here are looking to you as a mentor and as a leader. And I hope to come and have a coffee with you soon in Mumbai.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Nitish.
Bye.
We want to now welcome our next speaker for this session. Sai, welcome. Good to see you. I hope you can see all of us.
Of course.
Yeah,
I can.
Yeah, we've been having a crazy day with, with policymakers, industry, large audience, startups, and discussing multifaceted aspects of this, fast growing industry. And, this session today is really about seeing how gaming, as an ecosystem, as a, one of the fastest growing areas that everyone talks about, both in terms of scale as well as, how we are engaging globally, it's shaping up in India. And our idea was to, have, an ecosystem play around the different aspects of gaming, really, and see how you look at a legacy, around the wonderful company you have built, over these few years, right, and have scaled it. So would love to understand a little bit from you about your story. How are you looking at your legacy? How do you look at gaming shaping up in India? How do you see, the entire policy framework, the industry collaboration work together? And, both Viren and I are here. After you share some thoughts, maybe we'll ask some questions and, take it from there.
No, firstly, thank you so much, Rajan and Viren, for having me here. It's always great to speak at a conference of such high, quality and so many esteemed guests being a part of it. In the way I see gaming, in my opinion, or should I say, if there's one thing that I look at, I think Indian gaming should essentially be a net exporter of content. That essentially means that content created in India, games created in India should be exported to the rest of the world. Just like how, we, at least the last few years, I think we do have great indigenous capabilities in building games, no doubts about it. But just being very honest, like we are mainly still a net importer of gaming content. And I think we should be fully capable of building our games ourselves. I mean, we should always have all kinds of games, but we should essentially aspire to build games of quality where, we can export these games to other parts of the world. And I think that is the kind of legacy that I think the industry today should ideally aim at leaving, at least hopefully in the next 10 years. And if you're able to achieve that, then I see no reason why, the industry won't grow 10x or 20x from here. Because the beauty of gaming, unlike, say, any other industry, like, say, a manufacturing or any of the other industries, is that, there can be 5 kids out of, somewhere in Lucknow or in, Patna or anywhere who could conjure up a game, and they can have an audience maybe in Europe and in the US and everywhere else in the world. And that's the reason why I believe it's also the most easily exportable, goods or services, whichever way you look at it, in the world. It's way more easy to export gaming than it is to export content. It's way more easy to monetize gaming than it is to monetize content. And I just think in that way, it's probably one of the biggest opportunities that we have.
Fantastic. 2 thoughts, while you're speaking, and absolutely, I mean, if 75% of all of the AVGC revenues come from services exports, of course, mostly in visual effects, somewhat in animation, then games is in a fantastic position because it has a huge domestic market, which the other 2 verticals don't have. And it has this tremendous opportunity. We were just speaking with Nitish about, the success of something that goes to very young kids in the US, for example. So yes, absolutely, that's the dream that a lot of people will have. And what does it take? Because we've actually never had the wherewithal in other spaces in AVGC to mount something large enough to take on not only production but distribution in a global environment, because it takes a lot, right? And you've been in this such a young venture where you've scaled so many heights. You are in Southeast Asia and you also have forays into the Western world. So would you like to share some experiences in those areas? Because I was told, I think, in some of the conversations that, for example, the payments scenario in India, right? The ecosystem for payments in India is probably better than the US. I think you mentioned that last year, maybe things have changed. But how would you encourage those around, not only to design and develop a good game to make in India for the world, but what should they expect when they go outside to these markets? In your experience, maybe that would be some good insights to get from you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not as if we've done that very, very well. Firstly, we've been able to do a decent job in India, but I still believe we have a long way to go when it comes to some of the other markets that we are in. In Europe, of course, we've acquired a company and that company continues to do well. I think the first and foremost thing that we need to recognize is that we already have the talent. And you were saying that, right? 75% of exports come from animation, visual effects, etc., all that stuff, right? And at the end of the day, gaming actually uses all of that, right? So we have capable engineers, we have capable artists, we have great motion designers, we have all the talent we need in India. What we essentially need is patient capital, and we essentially need businesses and business leaders willing to take some risk, or should I say, and be patient with the risk that they're taking, because you can't. The thing with games is that you can't launch a game that's not ready, right? The audience is going to be like, they have 50,000 other alternatives, right? So you have to be patient. I think with respect to the other markets, I first and foremost believe that for any game developer, if you're targeting, say, a global market, I think obviously there are many avenues to distribute your product. You have the Play Store and you have the App Store. It's a different story that they end up charging 30%, which I think is in my opinion robbery in daylight, but that they shouldn't. But barring that, I think you can definitely use them to distribute. But the focus for anyone should be that at least in the beginning, they should pick and choose a market, 1 or 2 markets, and say, we're going to do well here. A lot of great game studios in India already make games for the Western markets, and they do very, very well. You should always have a strong base. You should pick and choose a market that works for you, you understand, and then slowly but steadily grow further from there. But in terms of building great content, I think all you need is patient capital. And I think that patient capital is going to come more from companies which already are present in the country, rather than expecting VCs to be patient. I think is not a great idea.
Thanks for that insight. And yes, so I think the audience is getting a sense that even though you have a company that is scaled as much as you have in terms of value, in terms of reach, it's still in a sense a startup for the next thing and the next thing that one wants to do.
Always.
So I want to just ask you a question for the benefit of the audience around models, right? So there is a model of being an aggregator where people make games, they come onto a platform, and then you orchestrate that platform in ways that drives value back to them. Whereas some folks will be wanting to be an individual game creator. They will look for those kinds of platforms on which to succeed. So would you like to throw some light on what it is to be one or the other for the benefit of some very young folks in the room starting out?
Right. I think if you're a platform, then the business you are in is the business of distribution, right? You're not necessarily in the business of game development, right? And your job is to provide the best possible distribution platform for as many different games that can publish on you. But if I were to draw an analogy, it's a poor analogy and a weak analogy, but you're in the business of maybe being a multiplex theater, or for that matter, an OTT platform. Whereas if you're a game developer, then you're in the business of content creation, right? Your ability to understand what content works and what content customers like is way more important. Whereas in the previous business, you need to understand nuances of distribution and what it takes to build a platform to enable distribution of multiple games.
It's very interesting that we are having this conversation because you see a Netflix, which is an aggregator, and the value that they have been able to create, especially when you look at the OTT space, and you say, why will it be different for gaming? And at the same time, you see one great game or one great title that makes billions of dollars. Right?
That's
You're
the
always
beauty of
torn
gaming.
between where do you want to be?
No,
Right?
that's the beauty of gaming, right? And then, I mean, it's like, which is why I believe, gaming won't go the OTT way because, the thing with a movie is no matter how good a movie is, you probably will watch it once, twice, at max 3 times. But if there's a great game, you're probably going to play it like, maybe 500 times, right? So which is the difference fundamentally between a great game and maybe a great movie. Nothing to take away from movies. They're wonderful. They're hard to make, not easy to make. But, even the best of the movies, probably you'll watch it 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
And good movies will build franchises, as we've seen Star Wars and all. Same thing with games, right? Games will become built strength to strength. So while there are similarities, there are many differences. And the beauty is the business models around it, to what you raised, Biren. And I think that's the exciting part. Nobody can bet for sure as to where it is, especially from India. Right. And we are such a nascent industry when it comes to where the world is and where we can go, with 700 million young people, the largest number of downloads, especially in a mobile first country. I think the opportunity is significant. And I think as both Sai and Nitesh have said, the ability for India to create platforms or to create games that the world will engage with is probably that big, legacy, sustainable business opportunity that lies, here with us. So, I mean, great, Sai. Thank you here for all those wonderful inputs. Maybe if you have any closing comments, you want to say something, before you leave, please, the stage is yours.
Absolutely. No, I think, thank you. Please continue the great work that you guys are doing with CII. Please let us know how we as the gaming industry can participate more and enable this and enable the good work even more. But thank you so much for having me.
And Sai, before you go, I just want to say that, brands like yours, I think, the marketing, I want to ask you a marketing question here, right? I know that the audience wants to ask how you are helping your brand ambassador to score more runs. That's Virat Kohli. But on a more serious note, how when you participate, what's the marketing story, right? You needed to build a big brand. You need to make sure your brand is very valuable. So on the one hand, and this is an issue that a lot of people take up. You have to build the brand overall for MPL, but you also then have to promote games within it, right? So how do you do this dual marketing role of promoting the product and also promoting the platform at the umbrella brand at the same time? Maybe that would be a good note to end on in terms of the consumer reach, etc.
Yeah, so I think the brand will always be promoted using brand-led mediums like television and maybe large-scale mediums. Whereas if you're looking at promoting individual games, then you rely a lot more on algorithmic marketing, which is mainly performance-led, but driven with machines and so on and so forth. Because Biren likes gaming is it's an easy thing to say, but does Biren like game X versus game Y? You're better off choosing that using performance marketing. So that's how we do. But I think the person after me who's going to speak will be able to tell you more about branding because he's built an even larger brand. Yeah.
Yes, we're going to bring him on. But in the meantime, it's good that you keep your brand very close to many people that people watch on TV. You're on the right hand side of the heart. So keep doing that, and wish MPL and you all success, Sai, and hope to see you in Bangalore.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sai. Thanks for being here. Hey, welcome, Harsh.
Welcome.
Good to see you.
Hi guys, good to see you.
Hi.
Too.
No, thanks for joining us. We've been going through this ecosystem of gaming and its different shapes and colors and forms, and really kind of seeing how this exciting ecosystem is going to shape up. And we've had day-long discussion with policymakers across 5 different ministries, as Biren's been talking, industry leaders, different aspects of gaming, from building talent to really creating world-class IPs to engaging large audiences, the youth power, so many different things, right? And you are here at at a point where you built such a great brand, something that everyone admires. and we got a great audience here. So, the point we are really trying to understand, Harsh, is like, what does it mean, right, to build a great gaming legacy out of India? How are you looking at it? How does, one participate in that, in that ecosystem, if one were to, describe it that way? What role can policymakers make? I mean, the stage is yours, right, to share some thoughts around that, and then between Biren and me, we'll have a few questions. But thanks again for joining us.
No, thank you for having me here. First of all, I think it's great that CII is putting this together, and Rajan, Biren, we need much more of this, right? If we are to fulfill the Honorable PM's goal of making India a much, much larger global gaming hub. And we see a lot of great policy frameworks starting to be developed and promoted, such as AVGC, right, in a much larger way. That will only help us more and more in actually contributing in a large way to the $1 trillion digital economy. I think India is at the forefront of gaming consumption in the world, but unfortunately not at the forefront of gaming revenues. I think that's a very well-known fact, but it doesn't have to be that way. We have the ability to create games in India, which are made in India, made by Indians and for Indians. I think some of the games that have come in India and have been very popular, if I say so myself, even fantasy sports and many others. Like if tomorrow you have a Nazara IPO, which was the first successful IPO in gaming. You have unicorns like Dream 11, MPL, Sai was talking, and it's great what they've built. You have Games 24/7. You have a lot more of these unicorns coming out from India for Indians. And I think we have a long way to go, and with the right policy frameworks, with the right policy platforms, I don't think there's anything that can stop Indian gaming entrepreneurs from taking on the world.
That's a very good insight, Harsh. Thank you for that opening comment. Couple of thoughts which come out of this conversation. Yes, I do believe that the role for CII and for us to be together and get policy done is because a rising tide raises all the boats in it, right? That's the ecosystem play, and I think you guys in the gaming industry, more so than anyone in animation and visual effects has ever done, are a far more tightly knit community, and that I think is going to pay results in the shorter time frame than in any others. The point I wanted to ask you is, how do you define success? I mean, you are one of the most successful companies, but we all know that when you reach a certain stage, then there's the next level of climb and the next level of climb. And I haven't flown a kite for a long time, but when you start flying a kite, it first has to catch the wind, right? Until then, you have to kind of keep doing a lot of stuff with it, and then it starts flying, and then you start looking at the next thing to do, how you build your craft from them. So from where you've reached now, having caught the wind as Dream 11, right? As we all know, how do you look at the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years? Where do you want to take this Dream 11? Are you going to put a 0 after the 11? What happens next?
Thanks, Biren. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, for us, we call it product market fit, flying that kite and catching that, that breeze, that wind, that wave, whatever you want to call it, is product market fit. And then you just keep scaling on, right? But then you're right, after you scale on, next is what, right? You get a bigger kite. Do you go to a place where there's a lot more kites and try to cut them, right? Like, do you try to be the head honcho there? I think the interesting part is that the market is just so nascent that all the gaming companies are working together to grow the pie. The pie is still so very small and is such high potential that the total addressable market is just ginormous, right? There's very few markets in the world, maybe one other, that can even try to match it. But we today have the biggest advantage of getting there faster now. I think, like if you take some of the numbers, right? In the last few years, we've gone from a handful of gaming companies when I started 14, 15 years ago. Today, we counted 950, almost 1,000 gaming companies in India that have attracted $3 billion of investments that are now, just the online skill gaming sector is now paying $1 billion of tax, right? I mean, that just says it all, right? That's where how far we can get. That $1 billion can go to $10 billion of cumulative tax in the next 5 years, given that we continue to grow well. I think all of these are very, very important because as we grow for Dream Sports, to answer your question, we've created one great sports engagement vehicle. And we've said, what else can we create? And so we're going to continue challenging the status quo of the fact that these Western games all come into India. But India can make games locally. And we understand our market better than anyone else. So whether it be Web3 games, whether it be, mobile games, and for us specifically, to answer your question, we're also venturing a lot into sports tech. Right. And so using DreamLearn as a platform, what are the problems can we solve for the Indian consumer? So we've started sports content and commerce with Fan Code. We have sports travel and experiences with DreamSet Go. We have a fintech arm called DreamPay. We have a gaming studio called Dream Game Studios. We have investments into Elevar for sports bats and shoes. We have investments in Kelomore for AstroTurf solutions. We have a plethora of these things. I won't bore you with more and more, like Fitter and So Strong for esports. But that's the point, right? I think the crux of the solution would be that what are the problems we are solving for Indian consumers? That's where we're headed now.
I just wanted to just take your last thought, which is so powerful, right? So, when games like Halo make people resilient and say, I am preparing a community against things that might go wrong. Do you think, and just to change the track completely for 1 second, we'll bring you back to the sweet spot. Can we make games that prepare people for floods that we have in the year, disasters that come in, the next, God forbid, pandemic of any kind? Because you built a community and through the games, you made them resilient. You can actually build people to have community and character through that. In the same way that you built a franchise around sports, I think the opportunity is huge, right? Even from a country perspective. Do you have any thoughts around that? Do you think that's even possible, or is it just a dream?
No, absolutely. I think gamification is something that can create incentives and can, whether that be monetary or social or economical, it can create incentives to do anything that you want people to do. So whether it is to donate to to like charitable organizations, to get work done in professional organizations, for social causes, for anything, right? You can always adapt gamification to accelerate the usage of any product or service.
Harsh, as we talk of sports, right, and I heard you talk about sports tech, and we compare to many Western countries, you look at Australia, look at, sports is so integral, right, to a person's life, right? Every day, 2 hours, or, it's integral because there's so much learning, that comes out of sport. And for a young country like ours, right, I think it's just we have to make sure it happens, right? And, whether we use the electronic platforms to bring sports, whether we use, sports as is, I think there's a much larger vision, for us to play. And then the entertainment that one derives out of watching sport, right? I think that's, again, a big thing and relevant probably to AVGC media entertainment. How do you see, that shaping up as a large part of entertainment in the lives of people? One, of course, as a, what you invest in as you make it a daily part of your daily life. And second, consume it from a content perspective, right? How do you see that shaping up and really your role in shaping that?
I think, thanks, Rajan. I think, look, sports is just exploding in India. So far, we've been a country that's completely focused on one thing and one thing alone, and we've been the gold standard globally for it, which is Indian men's cricket, right? And that too at the BCCI level. But I think we have a huge amount of depth still to cover in men's cricket, whether that be Syed Mushtaq Ali or Ranji or Indian women's cricket, under 19. All of these things are now coming up. We've gotten to the point where close to $10 billion are going to be being spent on 4-year rights of IPL, BCCI, and ICC for the Indian market, right? And I think that's going to give a huge amount of money to cricket, where BCCI will further invest it downwards into growing grassroots. And there's a huge ecosystem that develops because of it. If you ask 10 years ago, parents would say that if my child goes into cricket, then the only way they'll succeed is to become one of those 11 cricketers that plays for the country. Otherwise, there's no success in life. Today, that parent is saying if they become one of the top 500 cricketers, they'll get an IPL contract and their life is made. But that's a 50x jump, right? So already the funnel is much, much broader. And the same is happening with the breadth of sports. If you look at kabaddi, football, hockey, basketball, tennis, table tennis. For example, companies like ours also need to give back to the ecosystem. Our Dream Sports Foundation has, we support about 7,000 athletes. And one of our athletes just became, is Shrija Akula, who just became the first mixed table tennis champion. She won gold at Commonwealth Games. It's the first time for India. And these are things that I believe that sports is just a hugely untapped sector in India yet. And again, to your point, Biren, gamification of sports engagement, which is what fantasy sports does, unlocks sports engagement and viewership for a country. And it's actually proven that the countries which do really well in the Olympics in sports are also highly correlated with the economy rising up. And so these are really very interesting insights. And at the personal level, being a father of 2 boys, I can tell you that I would really want them to play sports and be sports fans. And even if they don't make it professionally, the amount it teaches you personally is just phenomenal.
It doesn't change, even though I'm a father of 2 girls. I have the same ambition for my kids. but it's also something that, at the same Commonwealth Games, there were women at 41 years won lawn bowls, a gold. Again, a new sport that we heard. But I think the opportunity that exists now, with sports and electronic sports and so many other aspects with gaming moving is phenomenal. So I think thanks Harsh for.
Speaking of my son, he just barraged through the door somehow. I thought I lost it.
No, good. We're getting a good view of your surroundings as you're walking around. But but thanks.
It's a very, very powerful medium. I have 2 girls. One supports Man U, the other supports Chelsea. So life is hell. But I can just tell you that sports is a very, very sorry.
I'm sorry to say, but the Manchester United one has better taste.
She has better taste, and also a lot of money gets spent because she has to buy a new T-shirt every year, wear a shawl, and then wait there till midnight. And it's very powerful. Shalini, who's running this conference, I had to stop speaking to her at 7:30 last night because she wanted to watch the India-Pakistan match. She said, Biren, I know the conference is tomorrow, but I can't talk to you anymore. So that's how it works. It's such a powerful thing.
That's one thing that women in sports is so highly underrated in India. It is just a massive opportunity for us to get more women involved in sports, playing, watching. It's 50% of our population, right?
It is
So
indeed.
we're really looking forward to women in sports being a much larger theme.
I think one of the things I'll leave in the closing is that, for games companies, right, all of us who are wanting to make these boats rise with the rising tide, I think we need to do a lot more qualitative research. We need to break a lot of myths. I think there are things about, how much people play, the addiction, parental thing. I think the more we inform people about the reality of what exists and the more guardrails we put around it, the more we'll be able to succeed. I think there's a call to do more of that, and maybe CII can help to participate with that. Continue to inform everyone. I think such a new industry, the misconceptions sometimes outweigh, the facts, and I think that's a big challenge for all of us.
I think you're absolutely right. I think CII can take a big lead because there is a very large requirement in gaming. Like I said, online skill gaming would account for as much as 90% or more of gaming revenues in India today. But there are large misconceptions about it. And I think CII can take the lead in helping work with the government to, advocate the need for a nodal ministry to distinguish between games of skill and games of chance and betting and gambling. The Supreme Court has already taken that stance in many games. I think there also needs to be a framework, very importantly, that classifies these games because, all games get put into one bucket, gaming. There's fantasy sports, there's card gaming, there's esports, there's casual games. We need SROs to be built to let the reins loose a little bit and let the industry innovate while keeping guardrails to protect the Indian consumers and help the economy. We also need companies to be diligent in terms of KYC and making sure user protection is at the core of what they do. And we need enforcement by these SROs to be able to really have the government support in helping to have teeth at the ministry level, at the SRO level, given by the ministries, to regulate and to help Indian gaming take that massive leap forward?
I think the last 2 or 3 years, we've begun to make this communication, but we know from a marketing perspective, it takes a sustained campaign to make an idea stick. And I think that's what we should continue to do shoulder to shoulder.
No, and I think a better understanding, right? And I think what we've done today all day is build that conversation, that consensus, understand the differences, appreciate different people's thought processes. And, as you rightly said, Harsh, when you started, we'll definitely do a lot more of this, but would love to have you again engage on many of these subjects, because it's something like what you rightly said. It's a small industry. We are doing it to grow the pie for this entire industry and really put India up there on global stage when it comes to gaming. So again, thanks so much.
I can. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much
Thanks
for
very
being here
much.
with
Talk
us.
to you
Take care.
soon.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. So, ladies and gentlemen, you just saw the 3 individuals whose combined value is probably more than the value of maybe the top 100 animation companies in India. And that is only because they've understood how to create value engineering on the side of product engineering and service engineering. And I think that's one of the things we want to take away from today. But we are not done yet, because besides the 3 individuals who are masters in this field, I have one sitting right next to me. So I'm going to engage him in some conversation as well, so that we round this off in a way. So Rajan, the 4 of you, if we just take that, and there are others that come in here. What is the art of the start? What should people do at the 1.0 level? How do they go to the next step? What is, because there's a wider canvas here, right? You're in the case of companies that are in services, you are B2B. In the case of games here, you are a B2C company, right? Even the top filmmakers don't distribute their own products by and large. If you take 1,000 or 1,100 films in the country, about 10 might be self-distributed, maybe 200 are self-distributed. So this is a very different vertical of the media and entertainment business. What's the 1.0 story? How do they build from there? Where do they get advice? Where do they get money? Of course, we all know there's difficulty getting a team that we've talked about for half the day. But on those other fronts, do you have advice for the art of the start?
No, thanks. Firstly, you use the word art. And I think, as many people talk of gaming, there's both an art and a science, and I think that really is what separates, the good companies from the rest eventually, right? But it always starts as the art, as the creative, as the passion. And I think one thing great about gaming is that the passion to either become a gamer or engage deeply in gaming, and then, having the passion to pursue it both as a career or as an entrepreneur is, I think, something that exists in millions of people, not only in India, but around the world. I think it's very common because as a young person, you went back 2,500 years. I go even further back, and gaming is really about competing, right? You're in kindergarten, in first grade, and this one is better than that. Your mother will say you're better than your other sibling, and gaming really brings out the best, because you need to do better than someone else, right? And I think, technologies like AI and all always keep raising the bar, right? And so AI has been there in gaming for 50 years, but we never looked at it that way because it always challenged you at your point of where it is. So I think, for somebody who's looking at gaming, you really need to think about how you can be different. How can you, enter this ecosystem? What can you first gain as experience and learning and knowledge, before you're able to scale to becoming an entrepreneur? If you're a creative guy, what are the other elements in your team that you need to add, to become successful? Once you get all of that, how do you really, share your vision and dream with others and engage them, especially investors and others, and then, be open to taking sometimes a back seat if your skill, your capabilities is different from what is needed to grow and scale the business. So if you see gaming in India, many small studios raise their first round, but very few are able to raise the second round and grow beyond. That's because somewhere the founder-led creative mindset becomes the block to what can happen in the future. And I think also working with others, right? Because it's always a team of 2, 3, 4 who start out. How do you build that? So while it's a super exciting opportunity, it's also a tough one. It's also been a challenge in India because of monetization, but that has begun to change, as you've heard. And when we looked at it from a jet synthesis angle, particularly Biren, as you said, we always looked at gaming as an ecosystem. We looked at it as an opportunity to engage multiple people, to be able to fill so many holes that exist as an opportunity. Today when we created India's largest esports game, which we ultimately sold to Nitish, was not because we wanted to build the largest esports. We started saying that once there's a casual gamer and he wants to become a professional gamer, how do I show him what he can look like? How can he be recognized in a large stadium? How can he be on the, on the bottle of every Mountain Dew bottle in India? And that's what happened. How can you get, be rewarded as an influencer and, generate money from endorsements to your colleagues when you are something great in something, build that vision, right, for a gamer. Like that, today there are commentators, regional talent, our grassroots play in esports has now become so much more important and powerful, even compared to what we're doing globally, because India has that opportunity. We talked of gaming studios. We've got to roll up and we are investing significant amount of capital to really be able to provide studios the strength and the capability that they don't have and put that together to create a large force out of India. So there are many aspects to the gaming industry, I think, that we need to look at together. And I think, as everybody ultimately concluded, and what you rightly said, sometimes you can get a hit because you're direct to consumer, out of something that was created in a very little amount of time, but, with some element of connect with audiences. But more often than not, it's a science rather than art. And I think the best example, we always talk of, the company Rovio with Angry Birds. Angry Birds was a 50-second game. So they created 50 odd games before they've perfected the art of how to get it right, to an end consumer. So I think there is a merit in that, but once you get it right, then I think, like any other success, it grows and scales, moves into merchandise and many, many other ways, and it shapes generations. I think you showed the Pinocchio ad. It's the same story. Yes, 84 years later, it will still shape the mindsets and the generations of what people, and I think with India, where we have so much historical knowledge, cultural knowledge, so many of these IPs, knowledge can get created. It can happen through animation, can happen through movies, it can happen through gaming first. Wherever it happens, it doesn't matter. It will be something that India will take to the world.
The Greeks and Greek mythology. So if you play Assassin's Creed, you play God of War. This is a 1,000-year-old mythology that they are making into a game. And we have that possibility to do exactly the same thing.
And all our sectors, right, actually can be the first that can lead and others can follow.
Absolutely. In the interest of time, because we're 5 minutes over, we're going to do something different. I'm going to ask you the questions. You're going to answer them by a show of hands. So question number 1, are you all paying attention? Question number 1. No, don't raise your hand yet. I haven't asked the question. Yeah. So, but I notice your enthusiasm. You'll go very far in life. I want to bet in your company. I want to invest in you. Yeah. All right. Back to the story. Which generates more revenue in India? Print newspapers or film? Those who think film, raise your hands. Very smart audience. The ones who didn't raise their hands are right. Which generates more revenue in India? Film or games today? Those who say film, raise your hands. Very smart audience. You're quite right. It's games. Those who believe that animation and visual effects combined has the larger revenue, or does film have a larger revenue? Those who think animation and visual effects, raise your hands. Oh my God, we didn't need to do this conference. They know everything. Oh, wow. You guys, I am going to give you a reward. The drinks and the dinner are on CII. Okay. So, okay, fantastic. So we got that done. So I just wanted to tell you, when we started doing this, the first time I was invited to chair the CII Entertainment Committee happened to be when Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, your DG, was in Mumbai. It was 2003, I think it was. And at that time, the combined visual effects, animation, games was very small. We were 1.5% of the revenues of media and entertainment. Today, as you correctly pointed out, by the way, the numbers were very close. I asked difficult questions because it's only 1 or 2% here and there. Today, print has about the same revenue as film, that has about the same revenue as online games, as about the same revenue as animation and visual effects. So animation, visual effects, and games together is double of the current film industry, which has been doing this for 100+ years. So if nothing happens and we are unsuccessful in this conversation, we will see that the games industry will become something like 15 or 20% of the industry. But if half of the things we are talking about and recommend come true, it's likely to be more than 33% of the industry. So this is something that is trending. Therefore, please make sure that on a daily basis, you follow Nitish and Harsh and Sai and Rajan every single day to make the fortune that you seek. Thank you very much, Rajan, for the conversation.
No, thank you, Biren. And I think, we leave everyone with a sense of optimism for the future. Thank you.
There is a phenomenal evening ahead of you. You are going to see the making of, nobody in the world has seen it. You are going to see the making of 3 of the most outstanding pieces of visual effects that have been currently produced on planet Earth. So stand by.
So coming up, as Biren mentioned, we have, for the audience sitting just in this hall, because we are not doing it live, there's going to be no recording of this presentation. Only all those people who are sitting in this hall are going to see the VFX story of Dune. And we have with us Mr. Jigesh Gajjar, Head of VFX at DNEG, to make this presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please